Chapter 1736. Outside the Kunlun building, above the Qinhuai River. The hundreds of soul tablets floating in the air first showed the last scene of the original body being killed, then dimmed one by one until all of them were extinguished in the end. It meant that all the descendants of the 5 Heavenly Lord families had been killed in a few seconds. At that moment, the henchmen of the 5 Heavenly Lord families in the building, including Li Fifan, Mo Yuza, Chen Xiong, and Lu Qinho, all turned pale and trembled in fear. They were truly terrified at that moment. In their eyes, Jiang Tian was no different from a demon. He was 100 times more terrifying than the 5 Heavenly Lord families. Jiang Tian used his bloodline as a guide to cut off all the karma. Because of one person's bloodline, all the descendants had died. That was too terrifying. Even Hansh Shensi and the others were trembling slightly and their eyes were full of fear. That kind of bloodline curse that cut off karma was not uncommon in the cultivation world. However, he knew that the Dharma laws on earth were extremely strong and it was extremely difficult to cast such a curse. Besides, some disciples of the 5 Heavenly Lord families even lived in space cities outside the planet. Even Han Ming Zongzi might not be able to go through the vast Dharma laws and kill people from 1,000,000 miles away. Some of the nascent soul Heavenly Lords and soul formation Divine Lords of the 7-star Beidou mainly cultivated bloodline curses. If they knew how terrifying Jiang Tian's curse was, they would be so ashamed that they would commit suicide. Hansh Shensi was a bit hesitant after he decided to submit to Jiang Tian. After all, if he followed the wrong person, he would be killed and even his family's foundation in the 7-star Beidou would be cruelly wiped out. The risk was extremely high. But now, he didn't have the slightest bit of doubt. Kang Taechu would definitely have the strength to wrestle with Han Ming Zongzi in the future. Bloodline killing curse traced to the source and severed karma. It was too vicious and went against the laws of heaven. Jiang Tian had never used it on earth. However, the situation was different now. Earth was in chaos. Jiang Tian didn't need to be polite at all. After Jiang Tian killed Ji Muxian and the 5 most powerful heavenly lords of Huaxia, he flew back to the building. Zhang Yilin and the media reporters shared the scene of the battle with the media and interviewed Hansh Shensi and the others. This is the BBC television station, reporting live from the Myth Alliance's latest exchange conference. In the Kunlun building in Jincheng, Huaxia, the former leader of the Myth Alliance, Kang Taechu, made a strong return and engaged in an intense battle with Ji Muxian and the other heaven monarchs of Huaxia. It wasn't just Huaxia's media that was paying attention. It could be said that the global media couldn't ignore this huge change. After all, Huaxia was an important place for cultivation after the recovery of spirit qi. Cultivators accounted for 1/3 of the world's population. What happened here would definitely affect the overall situation of global cultivation. The internet was in an uproar. Kang Taechu is back. When they saw the scene of Jiang Tian killing the 5 heaven monarchs of Huaxia, the whole world was in an uproar. For many ordinary people, Jiang Tian's deeds of restoring Earth's spirit qi, publicizing basic cultivation techniques, planting a Tao foundation for Earth, and establishing the Myth Alliance, although they had been deliberately erased by the extraterrestrial cultivators, were still like yesterday. He used to be the most powerful cultivator on Earth and several other dimensions. Unfortunately, after crossing the Sea of Stars and entering the ruins of deity, no one knew whether he was alive or not. This made many knowledgeable people sigh. Today, most of the people who believed in the Beihan sect's conspiracy were welcoming and excited. When Hansh Shensi arrived, the atmosphere froze in an instant. Many people looked at the screen and were terrified. They were extremely nervous, worried that Jiang Tian would be killed. Who would have thought that Hansh Shensi had already been frightened by Jiang Tian and knelt down to surrender? Hansh Shensi, why did you kneel down to the leader of the Taichu Alliance? What made you make such a difficult decision to abandon Han Ming Zongzi and stand on the side of the leader of the Taichu Alliance? Zhang Yilin recovered her appearance and led many reporters to interview Hansh Shensi. I followed Han Ming Zongzi for the sake of interstellar peace and justice. But I didn't expect him to be a despicable man who manipulated the interstellar war and deceived the world. Since I've already seen his true face, how can I continue to be his accomplice? Hansh Shensi was wearing a suit of armor and looked like an ancient god of war. He talked to a group of reporters in modern clothes in front of the camera, forming a strange scene. But everyone was already used to it. After the recovery of spirit chi, technology and cultivation were mixed and the future and history were mixed. There were too many scenes like this. But aren't you afraid of Hanming Zongzi's revenge? Zhang Yilin asked. I'm not afraid. Because we have the Taichu Divine Lord. Hansh Shensi said calmly with his hands behind his back. Divine Lord? Has the leader of the Taichu Alliance reached the soul formation level? A reporter noticed this detail and exclaimed. The power of the Taichu Senior isn't something we can see. Hansh Shensi smiled but didn't say anything. Next to him, the beautiful Chen Shi fairy walked over. She looked at Jiang Tian with awe, adoration in her eyes and said softly, Jiang Tian, you're the most powerful man in the world. But we've seen with our own eyes how Senior Taichu killed Divine Lord Tai Sha, the 4 Divine Lords of the Beihan sect, Astral Fire, Treading Sword, Green Miasma and Eerie Darkness in an hour, forcing Divine Lord Scorpio to commit suicide as an apology. Such a battle record, no matter what level he is at, certainly deserves the title of Divine Lord. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire place fell into dead silence. Astral Fire, Treading Sword. The names of those Divine Lords were too terrifying. Tai Sha and Sky Scorpion were powerful and brutal. They could easily destroy a fleet of space battleships and swallow hundreds of thousands of creatures in a city. Even nuclear weapons and sunflower lotuses couldn't kill them. In the first half of the war, they made the creatures on Earth tremble in fear, deep in their bones. And yet, Jiang Tian had killed them with a flick of his finger after reaching the soul formation level. It could be said that Jiang Tian's battle record in the past hour was far more than what Jeffrey had achieved in a year with the New Myth Alliance. There were also the 4 Divine Lords of the Beihan sect. They were all Hanming Zongzi's right-hand men, guardian elders. They controlled Dharma laws and even the fragments of the Grand Tao. Their Dharma power was extremely powerful and they dominated the world. They showed their divinity in front of people and traveled across the universe. In the eyes of the common people, they were omnipotent gods. The common people no longer worshipped them as idols, but as believers in the face of the gods and deities. They could only bow down and worship them. However, no one had expected that Jiang Tian had actually already killed their elemental masters. Divine Lords. He's a Divine Lord. He's the first soul formation Divine Lord on Earth and he's still the most powerful person on Earth. That's right, a genius is still a genius, and your father is still your father. What has he been through in the past few years? How did he become so powerful? Has he conquered the ruins of deity? Everyone exclaimed and looked at Jiang Tian as if they were looking at a demon god. After 5 years of fighting, I didn't disappoint you. The ruins of deity have been conquered and I'm now the lord of the ruins of deity. When asked by the reporters, Jiang Tian said calmly. That's great. Well done. From now on, I'm Kang Taichu's diehard fan again. After a moment of silence, the world burst into an uproar. This was especially so for Jiang Tian's old friends, such as Shen Lu and his wife, Iris, Lu Yating, and the others. They were so excited that they jumped up from their chairs, waved their fists, and cheered. The world only knows that the recovery of spiritual aura is an everlasting change. Endless blessings are obtained and the ultimate sublimation. But they don't understand that the greatest wealth in the world is the wealth of war. Senior Absolute beginning swept through the ruins of immortality, so how could his gains be little? Chao Jianjia was enlightened and she sighed. At this time, even Chao Shixiang, who had fallen asleep, was awakened. After learning about the situation, he immediately burst into tears and said with a trembling voice, Heaven has not left Earth behind. The Lord of the Earth's mythological alliance is finally back. After years of turmoil and humiliation, we can finally avenge ourselves. Chapter 1737. However, there were others who looked as if they had lost their parents. At the old site of the ancient city in Atlantis, the new king of Atlantis, Geoffrey, immediately surrendered to Han Ming Zongzi after the arrival of the Beidou cultivators. He was now the leader of the Myth Alliance. He even sent the mermen of the Bermuda Delta to attack the Martian base of the monsters. By then, Atlantis was already the dominator of the world's oceans, and Geoffrey even claimed to be the spokesperson of the Beidou cultivators. Geoffrey held the trident in his hand and played with the ancient scepter that was inlaid with precious gems. He walked into the royal palace that was emitting resplendent light and made of precious gems. He was at ease. "Amu, my king, the 5 nascent soul heavenly lords of Hua Xia are here. They'll definitely kill Kang Te-Chu and avenge you." "What Tianqing sect? Just wait to be annihilated." Amu's widow, Geoffrey's mother, wore a queen's crown on her head. Her beautiful face was filled with resentment and hatred as she watched the video of the battle. The 5 nascent soul heavenly lords of Hua Xia have all been taught by Han Ming Zongzi. I don't think Kang Te-Chu will be a match for them. Geoffrey was also full of confidence. He used to be afraid of Jiang Tian, but compared to Han Ming Zongzi and the other entities of the Beidou cultivators, Geoffrey knew that Jiang Tian was nothing. However, the situation took a turn for the worse. When he saw Jiang Tian kill the nascent soul heavenly lords and Hanch divine prince kneel before him, Geoffrey clenched his fists. With a clang, Geoffrey was so shocked that his scepter fell to the ground. His toes were bleeding from the impact, but he didn't notice it at all. Why is Kang Te-Chu so powerful? In a blink, Geoffrey was struck by lightning. His face turned pale and his body trembled in fear. Oh God! How did that goddamn Jiang Taichu become so powerful? I'm afraid he's at the divine transformation realm, right? How did he do it? Could it be that he can't be killed? Geoffrey's mother panicked and screamed. I wonder if he will still accept me calling him foster father now. Recalling Jiang Tian's terrifying and monstrous methods, Geoffrey was filled with regret at this moment. He was so terrified that his soul almost left his body. On the banks of the Nile River, inside a black pyramid that emitted a gloomy aura of death, fresh blood splattered everywhere, and broken bones flew everywhere. Amidst the shrill cries of agony, the pharaoh king Seth opened his bloody mouth and devoured the flesh and blood of a golden core grassland wolf clan member. Comfortable. Seth patted his round belly and roared into the sky. After absorbing the flesh and blood essence, his originally mummified body suddenly swelled up a little, and his body glowed with a faint golden color. After devouring dozens of golden core stage demonic beasts, he, who was already at the peak of the nascent soul stage, took another step forward and reached the half-step soul formation stage. Sudi also benefited from Big Dipper's arrival. He was glad that he had made the right choice. Experts like Heavenly Yi, Li Wuji, Hua Qingtian, Old Rely Lotus, and Demon Emperor Ao Bing, who were unwilling to submit to the North Frost sect, were either used as cannon fodder and died in the battle with the Big Dipper demon clan or lost in the struggle for power. Their cultivation was destroyed, and they were like stray dogs. On the other hand, Sudi was not only the deputy leader of the Myth Alliance, but the Pyramid Zombie tribe had also grown stronger and dominated the entire Sahara Desert. Moreover, his cultivation base had also improved rapidly. Humph. I should go to Sidoni's Tianqing school tomorrow to negotiate with Jiang Changgang. A red light that was dozens of meters long shot out of Sadie's deep eyes. He licked his fangs with his long tongue that was covered in saliva and grinned hideously. Negotiation is just a matter of extermination and murder. I heard that Kang Te-Chu's daughter has half of the spirit chi on earth. If I can drink her blood, I might be able to enter the soul formation stage and become a real god. In fact, he knew that Han Ming's ultimate goal was to get Jiang Tian's daughter, Jiang Beibei. He wanted to feed on her in order to obtain boundless nourishment and reach the pinnacle of the Return to Void stage. Of course, Sudi did not dare to compete with Han Ming. However, if he was proactive in the process of annihilating the Heavenly Clear sect and obtained Han Ming's appreciation, it would be a great blessing if he could get some leftovers in the end. The 5 most powerful heavenly lords of Hua Xia worked with Han Che to kill Kang Te-chu. I guess it's over. But at this moment, he inadvertently glanced at the huge projection screen and was so frightened that he almost jumped up. What? He has become so powerful. Seth was completely dumbfounded. For the first time, he wondered if it was a smart decision to follow the cultivators of Big Dipper. That's terrifying. He killed a nascent soul heavenly lord with a flick of his finger. He must have the power of a soul formation divine lord. According to Han Che, he's not an ordinary soul formation cultivator. He killed 4 divine lords, including Ta Jian, Ganghua, and Green Miasma. That's terrifying. Not just Atlantis and the Black Pyramid, many overlords who joined the North Star civilization, such as the Mayans in the Golden Temple, the Elephant King in India, the Assyrian king in the Tower of Babel and other forces who joined the North Star civilization, were all anxious and terrified, as if they were facing a great enemy. Before Jiang Tian revived the spirit Qi on earth, many powerful cultivators rose. They had all once wrestled with Jiang Tian for the control of the Myth Alliance. They wanted to occupy a dominant position in the new era of the recovery of spirit energy. Of course, they also knew about Jiang Tian's terrifying power. But after the arrival of the Big Dipper civilization, they didn't take Jiang Tian seriously anymore. There wasn't a single nascent soul cultivator on Earth back then, only a few old and ungraded golden core cultivators. Jiang Tian was very powerful back then, but he was just a general among the weaklings. The Assyrian king even mocked him publicly, saying that if Jiang Tian was still on Earth, he might not even be able to defeat a golden core monster. But then, they saw how powerful Jiang Tian was. He wasn't a normal nascent soul cultivator or soul formation cultivator. He was invincible and could even fight with Divine Prince Han Ming. I can't believe he achieved such terrifying results in the ruins of deity, the old king of Atlantis was amazed. Many nascent soul heavenly lords who joined the Big Dipper civilization felt extremely heavy, as if a mountain were pressing on their hearts. They used to be confident and waiting for victory, but then, their hearts sank to the bottom. Many families had already started to feel uneasy. They trembled when they recalled Jiang Tian's cruel methods. Ah, Kang Te-chu is back. I'm afraid the world will be rewritten again. Many people thought to themselves. Indeed, the world was in an uproar after Divine Prince Hanche's interview. Many nascent soul heavenly lords looked at Hua Xia and the man standing with his hands behind his back by the Qinhuai River. Many forces immediately made the decision to send envoys to Hua Xia or Sidonia as fast as they could to avoid the fate of being destroyed, hoping to contact Jiang Tian and show their goodwill and loyalty. The entire world was stirred because of Jiang Tian's return that night. Meanwhile, in the Kunlun building by the Qinhuai River. After Hanch Shenxi and Qin Shiferi talked about Jiang Tian's battle record, everyone was shocked. They fell into a dead silence, unable to recover for a long time. I spent 5 years forgetting you. I can't believe you're back. Li Jinju came from the roof and stared at Jiang Tian, feeling as if she were in a dream. Impossible. He's already crossed the star ocean and went to the dangerous planet in the ruins of deity. How can he come back? And he's become so powerful. Chen Xiong of the Beihuang Mining Company yelled in his mind with a pale face. He was 1 level lower than Ji Mingchuan and Zhang Kai. He belonged to an industry group supported by the Beihan sect on Earth, but he controlled a lot of spirit stone mines and some of them were bought from the Tianqing School's Huaxia dojo. With Jiang Tian's cruel methods, how could he let them off? Jiang Tian didn't even have to do anything. Jiang Tian's subordinates wouldn't show any mercy. The Chen family, the richest family in Huaxia, could be declared dead that night. Young Master Chen, did we underestimate him? Lu Qingho of the Green Bird Group shook his head and smiled wryly. Not only them. Many leaders of the tycoons, masters of the families and the cultivation sects who had joined the extraterrestrial civilizations were trembling in fear. Many people, including Li Fifan and Mo Yuza, knelt on the ground and kept kowtowing to Jiang Tian. Some people even swallowed poison and committed suicide. But Jiang Tian didn't have time to care about those ants. "Let me say something." He coughed lightly, and the people in front of him immediately scattered like frightened birds. Only the reporters took 2 steps forward. There were over 100 cameras at the scene, and they all pointed at Jiang Tian at the same time, afraid that they would miss a single detail. Jiang Tian glanced around and said with a calm voice, "The solar system belongs to the solar system. The solar system is the territory of the living beings on Earth. We cannot allow extraterrestrial civilizations to trample on it. I, Kang Tae-chu, hereby warn, from now on, without my permission, no one is allowed to stay in the solar system. I'll kill them all." Jiang Tian's eyes were full of disdain. His tone was calm, but the moment he spoke, his voice shook the entire place. Whether it was the older generation or the younger generation, cultivators or leaders of mortals, they all lowered their heads and didn't dare to look him in the eye. Not only the millions of people in the Jin City witnessed this scene. Billions of people sitting in front of the screen also witnessed it. The entire Earth went silent at this moment. Then, there were overwhelming cheers from both sides of the Qinhuai River, from the Jin City, from all over Huaxia, from the entire East and even from all parts of the Earth. Humans had been bullied by extraterrestrial civilizations for too long and faced despair. They were waiting for the arrival of a hero. In Sidoni Tianqing School, Zhao Xueqing also held Jiang Beibei's hand and stood in the middle of the cheering crowd. Through the light screen, she looked gently at the young man with black hair and white clothes, who was surrounded by everyone like a savior. It was as if 10,000 years had passed. "Is he Dad?" "Yes, Dad is a hero. He will be the hero who will save the entire galaxy." Zhao Xueqing nodded. Chapter 1738. Jiang Tian returned and gave a warning. This brought an unparalleled impact to the entire Earth. It turned out that the Myth Alliance issued a hunting order for the demon race. Suddenly, no one executed it anymore. The hunting of the demon race stopped abruptly. Humans and demons are not natural enemies. Earth's humans and demons both fight for Earth. They share the same origin, so they should work together to defend against foreign enemies. Leader Tai Chu is wise. Unveil the dark curtain. We need the Big Dipper cultivators to give us an explanation. Why did the demons come to the Earth 3 years ago? Humans and demons shook hands and walked on the streets, performing and parading, boiling like seafood, supporting Jiang Tian. The demons' chaos was just a deliberately planned conspiracy. From the beginning to the end, we found the wrong enemy. But without the return of leader Kang Tae-chu, I think we would have been fooled for 100 years, 1,000 years, or even until our civilization was assimilated and completely disappeared, we would never know the truth. Humans should thank Kang Tae-chu. Peter Chen, the author of An Overview of Global Cultivation Civilization and a historian of cultivation, said earnestly in an interview with the BBC. Under the leadership of the righteous cultivators led by Kang Tae-chu, the struggle to crush the anti-Earth group of Ji Muxian, Zheng Yilong, Zhang Huairan, Yang Chen, and Qi Jinglei has achieved a great victory. The Gang of Five group led by Ji Muxian has fallen into a vast ocean of angry condemnation from all cultivators, races, and classes. A climax of exposing, criticizing, and eradicating the Gang of Five's crimes against Earth is vigorously unfolding. Huaxin News commented. The Gang of Five is a group of conspirators and ambitious schemers with capitulationist tendencies, poisoned by the defeatism of their race and civilization, and fantasizing about seizing power. They are the capitulators who refuse to fight and are afraid of sacrifice. They are the ones who proactively kneel down and lick the boots of the surrenders. They are crazy against Kang Tae-chu, the great guide of the spiritual energy recovery, the founder of the All Ages Taoist Foundation, and the chief helmsman of the Earth battleship who conquered the Sea of Stars. They betrayed the purpose and declaration of the Myth Alliance that they signed with their own hands. They are the fighters and lackeys of the extraterrestrial cultivators. They are crazy enough to attack Tai Chu's followers and close comrades, Yi Tianren, Li Wuji, and Lotus Buddha, trying to usurp the highest leadership of the Myth Alliance. Chao Shixiang stood out and represented Hua Xia's secular world to criticize Ji Muxian and the others. The Gang of Five is the great enemy of the Demon Clan and the Human Clan. It can be said that they are the great enemy of all living creatures on Earth. Our war with the Gang of Five is a war between Earth's creatures and extraterrestrial invaders. It is a war between interstellar pacifists and imperialist invaders. It is a life-and-death war between racial egalitarians and extreme racists. I can't be soft-hearted, I can't take a step back. I have to remember the teachings of the Taichu Alliance Master, behind us is our home. The Huaxia army had a special live broadcast on the Look at Me platform to answer the netizens' concerns and express their support for Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian had come back with an unstoppable momentum. He had killed the 5 nascent soul heavenly lords of Huaxia with a snap of his fingers, which had already shocked the world. Especially after hearing from Qin Shi Fairy and Han Che Divine Prince, everyone also knew that Jiang Tian had once killed many soul formation divine lords on Mars, which was even more terrifying. The nascent soul cultivators other than the 5 heavenly lords were trembling in fear and didn't dare to disobey Jiang Tian at all. In a blink, the cultivation world, the senior members of the secular world, the large families and sects of Huaxia immediately announced their support for Jiang Tian. Some even visited the Kunlun building in person to greet him as disciples. That was only the attitude of the government and the senior members. There were also a lot of different voices among the people. In short, they were fans of Ji Mingchuan, Xing Xian and Han Che Divine Prince. Those fans were the same as the fans of the popular celebrities in the past. However, they had entered a new era and there were ferocious beasts everywhere. People's lives were in danger and those popular young men were useless, so they had been abandoned a long time ago. Those who replaced them were young cultivators like Ji Mingchuan. They were hardcore fans and idols. No matter what era it was, there was no lack of such irrational and extremely boring fans. And those fans of Ji Mingchuan became the staunch opponents of Jiang Tian. They kept guiding the public opinion on the internet, hoping that Jiang Tian would die quickly. Besides, those fans even had a higher profession and could completely guide the public opinion. Kang Taichu killed the 5 nascent soul heavenly lords and Chuan without any reason as soon as he came back. He's cruel and unscrupulous. He'll die a horrible death. That night, there were discordant voices from the official media account of People's Solar Blast, which was very influential. There was an uproar and many interpretations were made. Some people wondered if the government and the military had changed their opinion and were opposing Jiang Tian. It doesn't represent our attitude. We're still investigating. The leader of the daily press was scared out of his wits. She immediately investigated through the night and found out that the female administrator of the official media account was actually a fan of Ji Mingchuan. She loved his handsome face and wanted nothing more than to eat Jiang Tian's flesh and skin to vent her hatred for him who killed her idol. In other words, she had used the official media to speak up for herself in order to uphold justice for her fans. That female administrator was secretly hanged that night. But still, a lot of media outlets reported similar things. Because many of those media workers were women and they were die-hard fans of Ji Mingchuan. Kang Taichu said that he wants the cultivation civilizations from other planets to leave the solar system. What right did he have? The ancestral land of mankind is Earth. The other planets in the solar system are ownerless and should belong to whoever occupies them first. If cultivators from other planets occupy them, they should belong to them. Kang Taichu is being chauvinistic. He puts the interests of Earth above everything else and ignores justice and morality. In the long run, the young man will become an evil dragon and the civilization on Earth will be destroyed. Everything will be destroyed in his hands. Some elegant female teachers even took the opportunity to criticize Jiang Tian and Ji Mingchuan and the 5 heavenly lords during their lectures. Jiang Tian didn't care about those voices. In other words, those ants weren't worth his attention at all. Because the union of Hua Xia's guardians was controlled by Cheng Lulu, the way to deal with those interstellar surrenders was very simple: kill them. Except for those die-hard fans. There were also some moderators who didn't think Jiang Tian was going to win. Their reason was also very simple. The cultivation civilization on Earth wasn't as good as Beidu's, and Jiang Tian was definitely no match for Han Ming Zongzi. Although Kang Te-Chu has the ability to kill soul formation cultivators, Han Ming Zongzi isn't an ordinary one. He's a sacred soul formation cultivator. Someone exclaimed. Yes, Kang Te-Chu is too impatient. He doesn't understand the principle of slow accumulation and slow planning. Many people thought so. In their opinion, Han Ming Zongzi hadn't directly invaded Earth yet. Instead, he was supporting agents and influencing public opinion, trying to win the approval of the human race on Earth and eventually achieve complete assimilation. It was even possible that he would never use force. That was Han Ming Zongzi's way of doing things. He subdued the enemy without a fight, and did not seek victory through fighting and killing. In this case, Jiang Tian only needed to develop his own forces on Earth until one day, when he was 100% sure that he could defeat Han Ming, then it would not be too late to turn hostile. And now, Jiang Tian certainly didn't need to reveal the relevant images, kill their agents and announce that they should withdraw from the solar system. That was equivalent to starting a war that Jiang Tian wasn't very confident about. Of course, it wasn't wise. Thank you, Senior Tai Chu. If it weren't for you, the world would have been turned upside down. Li Wuji, Shen Mange, Yi Karen, Lu Shang and Dugu Xiao came to visit Jiang Tian. Their words were humble, as if they were meeting a god. Li Wuji even bowed deeply and thanked him solemnly. The situation took a turn for the worse. Jiang Tian returned and killed 5 nascent soul heavenly lords in a row. The cultivation world of Hua Xia returned to the control of Tianqing School. Li Wuji immediately took control of the Kunlun sect and the alliance of Hua Xia's guardians. Chapter 1739. You don't have to thank me. We're comrades in arms. Jiang Tian stretched out his hands to support Li Wuji. His smile was warm, and he did not put on any airs at all. The more powerful Jiang Tian was, the more he felt that it wasn't easy for people to struggle, and the more approachable he became. His arrogance and disregard of human life was only for his enemies. He never put on airs towards his old friends. Alas! You asked me to take care of the daily affairs of the Myth Alliance. In the end, the Myth Alliance fell apart and suffered heavy losses. I've failed my mission and I'm too ashamed to see you. Li Wuji's hair was gray and he looked old. His power had dropped and he looked like a disabled person. When he faced Jiang Tian, he was full of shame and dejection. It's not easy to survive to this extent. Jiang Tian smiled and said. It wasn't just to comfort him, it was also the truth. The civilizations that could stand in the universe had gone through cruel baptisms. Natural disasters and man-made disasters were more than 100 times more dangerous than the recovery of spirit Qi and the invasion of the North Star Beidou. Because they had gone through a lot of hardships and walked on the edge of life and death again and again, those civilizations had become vigilant and had strong adaptability, resistance and fighting abilities. The cultivation world on Earth at the moment was like a young man who had just learned a few moves and hadn't carried a sword yet. He didn't have any experience at all. So, it was already good enough that the cultivation world on Earth could survive to this extent. But Ji Muxian and the other 5 are only a small problem. Even Jeffrey and the New Myth Alliance are nothing to worry about. The real problem is the cultivators from other planets like the Beihan sect. Li Wuji suddenly heaved a sigh and looked worried. Don't worry. I've given them an ultimatum. If they dare to stay for a long time, I'll kill them with my sword. Jiang Tian chuckled, looking calm and composed. Leader of the Taichu Alliance, I heard that Han Ming Zongzi is a sacred grade soul formation cultivator. Li Wuji was worried. I heard that ordinary peak stage soul formation cultivators might not be able to defeat him. It's fine. Jiang Tian appeared to be extremely confident. He smiled leisurely and said, however, before killing them, I want to go back to Sidoni and take a look. This is how it should be. Grand beginning Divine Lord, go back. You're working too hard. Everyone was filled with admiration. Since Jiang Tian's return. First, he killed 6 divine lords of the divine transformation realm on Mars and obtained clues about the imprint Dharma artifact. In this battle alone, the number of divine lords that Jiang Tian had killed surpassed the total number of divine lords that the cultivators of Earth and Big Dipper had killed in the past 2 years. After that, Jiang Tian went around Huaxia to rescue the occupied grotto heavens and secret realms. In the Kunlun building, he killed the 5 most powerful heavenly lords of Huaxia. But until now, he had yet to return to his real home to see his parents, daughter, and other relatives. It must be noted that he had been fighting in the Sea of Stars for 5 years and had lost contact with Earth. That kind of sacrifice was truly admirable. Jiang Tian nodded and took out a few gourds of Butian pills. He said to Li Wuji, take these pills and I'll teach you a cultivation art to repair the spirit embryo. You'll be able to form the golden core again and even have a chance to enter the nascent soul level quickly. Li Wuji felt that a cultivation art had appeared in his mind. It was extremely mysterious, as if it had merged with the grand Tao of heaven and earth. When the spirit Qi recovered, he once thought that with this opportunity and his diligent cultivation, he might be able to keep pace with Jiang Tian one day. But then, he realized that the gap between him and Jiang Tian had widened. After all, he's a reincarnated cultivator. In his previous life, he had reached the level of a deity. No one can compare to the advantage brought by that experience. Li Wuji exclaimed in his mind. Li Wuji frowned and said, there are so many Butian pills. I'm afraid I can't use them all by myself. Of course. Jiang Tian smiled and said, you can give the rest to the cultivators who lost their power in the process of resisting the Beidou civilization and protecting the Tianqing school. There's no need to hide this cultivation art. You can teach it to them. Thank you, leader of the Taichu Alliance. Hearing this, Li Wuji couldn't help but feel extremely grateful to Jiang Tian. He bowed deeply once more. Those Butian pills and the cultivation art Jiang Tian taught were invaluable. Those nascent soul cultivators and golden core cultivators would owe Li Wuji a great favor if he gave them to them. If Li Wuji were to take control of the Huaxia cultivation world, it would be a matter of course. Jiang Tian could have done that himself. Giving it to Li Wuji would give him a chance to establish his authority, expand his influence and build relationships. At this time, Jiang Tian looked at the pale and weak Yi Karen and said, Karen, your grandfather and father died protecting Earth. I owe them too much. You'll follow me from now on. Yi Karen bowed deeply and tears rolled down his cheeks. Follow me, these 3 words weren't so simple in the world of cultivation. Instead, they referred to direct disciples. I want to know, can my grandfather and father come back to life? Yi Karen asked with tears in his eyes. What do you think? Jiang Tian glanced at Lu Shang, the ghost emperor of Mount Mang. Mount Mang was the first place with extreme yin on earth. Yin Qi gathered there and made it convenient for divine souls to reside there. It was known as the Ghost Realm and Ghost City in history. Even Fengdu City, which was known as the Underworld, had to admit defeat. The world changed greatly with the recovery of Spirit Qi. Not only did the pure Spirit Qi increase rapidly, but so did the Yin Qi and Malice Qi. Mount Mang was the first to bear the brunt. Before Jiang Tian left, it had been turned into a place to nourish Yin souls, just like the underworld on earth. As long as the cultivators who died in the battle didn't have their divine souls destroyed at the time, there would be a trace of Yin soul left behind. Messengers of hell who were good at capturing souls and raising ghosts would collect the divine souls and bring them to the ghost realm of Mount Mang to nourish them to ensure that their divine souls wouldn't be destroyed. They would directly enter the ghost cultivator lineage, or wait for the reconstruction of a physical body, or possession, or reincarnation. Reconstructing a physical body was the most difficult. Even with Jiang Tian's current level, he would need to borrow the creation substance to create an identical one. Of course, if the requirements for the physical body weren't too high and there was no need to ensure the continuation of cultivation, it would be very difficult for Jiang Tian. Possession was relatively simple. It required the divine soul to be stronger and more resilient. But it would go against the harmony of heaven and conflict with the host's original soul memory, which could easily form a mental demon. Most people wouldn't use it unless it was a last resort. Reincarnation was the simplest and most effective way. It was also the first choice of the 6 paths of reincarnation. A baby in the mother's womb didn't have the slightest memory or consciousness, so it was very easy for the divine soul to enter. But in the baby's mind, there was a stream of connate pure yang qi that could naturally suppress the divine soul. The baby's memory would be suppressed and blinded, and it would be difficult to awaken the memories of the previous life. But if an expert enlightened it, it would be easy. It was equivalent to cultivating with the experience of the previous life, and it would be twice the result with half the effort. In fact, most of the 6 paths of reincarnation in heaven and earth were man-made and man-made. It required many cultivators to spend a lot of effort to create them. They were not natural. Therefore, when Jiang Tian came to West Earth and saw the teachings of the Changshan sect, he pointed out that they were pinning their hopes on the afterlife and thought that the 6 paths of reincarnation were illusory. That was because Jiang Tian knew that there was no reincarnation in West Earth. What Jiang Tian was creating now was only a simple reincarnation cycle. However, it still involved a lot of things. It was not something that could be completed in a single day. Lu Shang immediately shrank his head and said in fear, Brother Zhantian's divine soul was immediately shattered and completely dissipated. And Senior Yi Tianren is only left with a wisp of his divine soul. In the chaos of the earth, tens of thousands of human cultivators died and were injured. We only saved 500 divine souls. Speaking of this, he couldn't hold on any longer. He knelt on the ground and said in a trembling voice, I didn't do a good job. Please punish me. Alas, I know. You've done your best. Jiang Tian sighed and didn't blame him too much. He stood up and said lightly, Karen, I'll take you to the ghost realm of Mount Mang and see if your grandfather's divine soul has a chance to be reincarnated. Just as everyone was sending off Jiang Tian, Yi Karen, and the big black dog respectfully, they were about to leave. The acting leader of the Myth Alliance, Geoffrey, the pharaoh of the Black Pyramid, Sudi, the Assyrian king of the Tower of Babel, request to see the leader of the Taichu Alliance. All of a sudden, a voice was heard announcing something. Jiang Tian's eyes turned cold. He sat down again and said with a mocking smile, Ha, I was just about to look for them. I didn't expect them to come here themselves. They are tired of living and took the initiative to come to me for me to kill. Chapter 1740. Let them in. Jiang Tian was surprised by the arrival of these people. Because everyone knew each other very well, Geoffrey and the others' strength was about the same as Ji Muxian's. They were definitely not Jiang Tian's match. Moreover, they ought to know that with Jiang Tian's decisive and vengeful nature, he would probably absolutely not let Geoffrey and the others off. If they came here, they would be sending themselves to their deaths. A moment later, Geoffrey, the king of Assyria, Sudi, and the elephant king of India walked in together. Sizzle. Li Wuji, Yi Karen, and the other supporters of Jiang Tian turned around and looked at the visitors. Suddenly, invisible sparks appeared in the air and the atmosphere was tense. It was as if the barrel of gunpowder was about to explode. The two sides had fought many times in the fight for control of the Myth Alliance. Li Wuji's Dantian was severely damaged and his power was destroyed. He was the laughingstock of the world. Yi Karen's grandfather and father were killed and his family was destroyed. How could he not take revenge for this blood feud? Ha, interesting. Even at such a time, you are still able to display killing intent and hostility without the slightest bit of remorse. Jiang Tian sat on the leather sofa and sipped the tea that Cheng Lulu handed to him. He looked at Geoffrey and the others with interest and realized something. They were all peak-stage nascent soul cultivators or even higher, but they were still a distance away from the soul formation level. However, their grades were not bad. They were all forcefully piled up with priceless tiger-wolf elixirs. It seemed that the Northern Frost sect and the Northern Dipper sect had spent a lot of effort to show their goodwill and show their superiority in the cultivation arts they had passed down. They had spent a lot of cultivation resources and heavenly materials. Of course, even if they were so powerful, Jiang Tian could kill them with a snap of his fingers. Their power was only comparable to an early-stage soul formation cultivator, and they were only at the first level. They were at the same level as Ji Muxian. It could be said that Jiang Tian had killed countless such existences. Jeffrey and the others naturally knew that Jiang Tian's strength was enough to kill them. The reason why they were so aggressive was simple. First, they thought that Jiang Tian would not dare to offend the Beihan sect. Second, they were carrying some secret treasures that were passed down by the Beihan sect. Greetings, Mr. Kang Taichu, the former leader of the Myth Alliance. Retracting their gazes, Jeffrey and the others bowed slightly toward Jiang Tian. It was so small that it was almost invisible. There was no respect in their attitude. With a mocking look in his eyes, Jiang Tian stared at Jeffrey and the others and said with a smile, "You are all giants on earth in the new era of the recovery of spirit qi. You are in high positions. Why would you condescend to meet me, Jiang Taichu, today? Ha, Taichu, my friend, you used to be the leader of the spirit qi recovery era. You have made great contributions to the cultivation world. Now that you have returned, of course we are concerned about you." The Assyrian king's face was thin and haggard, but his hair was as white as silver. His eyes were deep, filled with vicissitudes and wisdom. He was wearing a white robe, and his temperament was otherworldly and ethereal. He bowed slightly and said with a smile, "Ha, thank you." Jiang Tian said with a half-smile, "What do you want to say?" "This time, I am here on behalf of Han Ming, the sect leader of the Beihan sect." Jeffrey was wearing a luxurious long robe that was embroidered with patterns of sea beasts and sea gods. He was holding a trident that represented the hegemony of the bottom of the sea and a scepter that was inlaid with gems and crystals. His eyes were arrogant. He said with a proud look, "I want to talk to you about the division of power in the solar system." "Oh. Please tell me more." Jiang Tian's tone was calm, neither anxious nor impatient as he spoke with interest. "Earth should open its door and welcome the arrival of the Beta sect," Jeffrey said matter-of-factly. "I'm sure that with the great talent and vision of Grand Primordium, you should have realized that a civilization that is isolated and stagnant will not achieve great development. Only by being tolerant and open will the civilization on Earth continue to grow. One day, it will be able to stand among the many civilizations in the Milky Way." Jiang Tian chuckled with disdain in his eyes. But there were some things that he didn't want to say. Of course, interstellar civilizations also had to be open and share resources and civilization. But there was a prerequisite, which was that the two sides had to be on a relatively equal and balanced basis. A lion could be brothers with a tiger and do business with it. But a rabbit couldn't be naive enough to think that it had the same rights as a lion. If it walked in front of a tiger without any precautions, it would only become its food. Jeffrey and the others didn't understand such a simple principle. They just pretended to be confused and took the moral high ground to force Jiang Tian to hand over the control of the solar system so that the Beihan sect could arrive openly. They even pretended to be the savior of the world. Therefore, Jiang Tian didn't bother to give any reason. He smiled and said directly, "Jeffrey, I think it's a bit unnecessary for you to talk to me on behalf of Han Ming Zongzi." His eyes were calm, without a trace of emotion. "I'll say the same thing. Since I made the oath a few days ago, there has been no change. Any cultivator of the Big Dipper sect who occupies the solar system without my permission will be killed without mercy." Jiang Tian's tone was casual, but as soon as he finished speaking, a majestic pressure came crashing down. Jeffrey and the others suddenly felt as if a mountain was crazily pressing down on them. Their bones cracked as if they were about to be shattered and annihilated in the next moment. The divine Elephant King of India, who had the weakest cultivation, took a few steps back and almost fell out of the door. He couldn't help but feel ashamed and shocked. He's so powerful. He's too powerful. Everyone couldn't help but feel terrified and uneasy. They had all seen Jiang Tian's battle scenes in the video and knew that Jiang Tian's strength was terrifying. However, knowing couldn't be compared to the intuitive feeling of actually facing it. The latter was 10 times or 100 times more shocking. They felt as if a few ants were facing a god who could destroy the world. They didn't have the slightest strength to resist. If you're just a messenger on behalf of Divine Sun Han Ming. Jiang Tian put away his unparalleled ferocity and said calmly, my answer is already very clear. You can leave now. I'm already being merciful by not killing you. Jiang Tian directly ordered them to leave. At this time, Jiang Tian's strength also made Li Wuji and the others feel a sense of inferiority and fear. If they were in his shoes, they would never dare to resist Han Ming Zongzi in the slightest. Only Kang Taechu dared to be so domineering and resolute, as if all the gods and Buddhas in the sky couldn't stop him from moving forward, as if all the worlds in the universe couldn't bury his ambition. Anyone who stood in front of him, even if they were gods or Buddhas, could be cut down with one sword strike. What? You don't want to talk anymore? Jeffrey's aura was instantly suppressed by Jiang Tian. He was like a little white rabbit that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, held down by a primordial monster that could devour the world. Not to mention his strength, battle record, and achievements, he was inferior to Jiang Tian in all aspects. The key was his mentality. He looked only in his 20s because he had already built his foundation at that age. From then on, it was guaranteed that he wouldn't age. In fact, his real lifespan was already more than 100 years old. This age was already considered old among ordinary people. However, compared to Jiang Tian's 10,000 years of lifespan, he paled in comparison. He was an out-and-out brat. Jiang Tian had lived 2 lives and had experienced too many battles and killings. He had seen too many big scenes and cultivated a calm and magnificent temperament. That kind of huge aura that was like the sky, overlooking the earth, and overlooking all living things was not something that Jeffrey could compare to. Chapter 1741. Jeffrey was taken aback. His face flushed red and he was dumbfounded. He had a feeling of being put on the spot. Jiang Tian's reaction caught him off guard and he didn't know what to say. Senior Tai Chu, please reconsider. The Assyrian king, who had white hair and a white beard, was more experienced. He immediately said with a face full of joy. The Beidou civilization has its advantages and advantages. If we merge with the cultivation civilization on Earth, we will be able to create a new era of cultivation and give birth to soul formation divine lords and void return mighty saints. The others also nodded. I know that. But I have made up my mind. Stop talking nonsense. Jiang Tian was unmoved. Senior Tai Chu, do you know that Ji Mingchuan and the others are inner sect disciples of the Beihan sect just like me? Jeffrey was infuriated by Jiang Tian's stubbornness. He stepped forward and scolded. You killed Ji Mingchuan and the others, which means you are an enemy of the Beihan sect. If it weren't for Han Ming Zongzi's magnanimity, you would have been dead by now. Kang Taechu, as long as Han Ming Zongzi gets the right to live on Earth, he can even return the position of the leader of the Myth Alliance. Shouldn't you be grateful for his kindness? Who do you think you are? How dare you talk to me like that? Jiang Tian raised his eyebrows and suddenly smiled, but a trace of coldness flashed through his deep eyes. Isn't it enough that I am the acting leader of the Myth Alliance? Jeffrey tilted his head and said arrogantly. As soon as he said that, the king of Assyria and the others panicked. Jeffrey was too naive and naive after all. He didn't know how terrifying Kang Taechu was. We betrayed him and took control of the Myth Alliance, which made Kang Taechu unhappy. He didn't mention it, but you brought it up. Aren't you adding fuel to the fire? Ha, acting leader of the Myth Alliance? I remember that position belongs to Li Wuji. How did it fall into your hands? Did you ask for my permission? Jiang Tian suddenly felt a little annoyed and chuckled. Suddenly, he raised his right hand and slapped out. That's right. Jiang Tian didn't want to take his life. Instead, he wanted to slap him. But this was worse than killing him. This was the ultimate humiliation. How dare you slap me? Jeffrey roared angrily, and his body retreated rapidly. His nascent soul roared, and his spirit embryo trembled. The 5 to 6 types of protective magical artifacts that he carried with him gave off resplendent rays of light. All kinds of laws of the sea surged around his body in an attempt to protect or interfere with Jiang Tian. It was all for the sake of not being slapped in the face by Jiang Tian. Because this time, the meeting between the two sides was also witnessed by various media and was directly broadcasted to billions of people around the world. If this image were to be spread, it could be said that his dignity would be ruined and he would not be able to establish his authority on Earth. Pa! Even if Jeffrey used thousands of methods and divine powers, it was still useless in the end. This slap was still solid and landed on his face without any suspense. Jeffrey's entire body flew out horizontally. When he stood up again, there were a few clear fingerprints on his face. For a moment, he was shocked and angry. Kang Tae-chu, how dare you hit me? Do you know? Jeffrey roared loudly and was driven mad with hatred. You're Han Ming Zongzi's disciple, oh, no, a lackey, right? Not to mention a lackey like you, even if Han Ming Zongzi was here in person, I would still slap him. Jiang Tian raised his hand. In Jeffrey's scream, he directly caught him in his hand. Like an eagle catching a chick, he held him in his hand lightly and laughed disdainfully. You people really disappoint me. You don't have any ability at all and can only be the dogs of the extraterrestrial cultivators, threatening others with their power. Let go of me. Jeffrey only roared crazily, but he couldn't move at all. His entire body was frozen by Jiang Tian's terrifying sea-calming ice god law. Even a soul formation cultivator would find it difficult to break free, let alone Jeffrey, who was only at the nascent soul stage. Kang Tae-chu is too strong. Compared to him, Jeffrey is like trash. It's like a baby in swaddling clothes facing the boxing champion Tyson. Tyson can kill him with one finger. Ridiculous. How dare he challenge the leader of the Taichu Alliance with this? For a moment, more than 1 billion viewers in the live broadcast room watched this scene in shock and crazily flooded the screen. Kang Tae-chu is still an invincible existence on this planet. Jeffrey is not effective at all. I thought he was a bit stronger than Ji Muxian. Getting the inheritance of the Big Dipper is just so. It turns out that a lot of people preach that the Big Dipper art is supreme and invincible. Especially Zhang Shisan, Chao Jianjia, Lu Yating, Shen Lu and his wife and other hardcore fans of Jiang Tian. Their palms almost turned red from clapping. Kang Tae-chu, let go of him. Look, how brutal. Even our Joffrey's snow-white and slender neck has turned red. Kang Tae-chu, you are ruthless and unscrupulous. One day, you will be punished by the heavens and struck by lightning. Jeffrey's female fans were all cursing Jiang Tian. They were so distressed that tears fell from their eyes. They were almost the same group as Ji Mingchuan's fans. Because Jeffrey and Ji Mingchuan belonged to the same type. They were good-looking and liked to interact with their fans. It was just that their styles were different. Ji Mingchuan was gentle and approachable. Jeffrey, on the other hand, had always been a domineering CEO. He ignored his fans, but his fans loved him even more. Maybe he was a little masochistic. In short, he was very cheap. Just because I killed a few of Han Ming's lackeys, Han Ming is going to punish me? Jiang Tian finally looked at Jeffrey for the first time. He smiled, revealing 8 white teeth. His smile was as bright as the boy next door. However, in the eyes of everyone, it was like a prehistoric mythical beast opening its bloody mouth. It was extremely frightening. That's because he attracted the Big Dipper demon clan. The demons created chaos on Earth. There are so many orphans and widows. Who should they ask for their father and lover? There are so many parents who have lost their children. Who should they ask for their children? Who should be punished for the thousands of casualties of the human and demon clans on Earth? Jiang Tian's words were powerful and sonorous, like the sound of a sword. This. Jeffrey was dumbfounded and speechless. Han Ming is guilty. At this moment, in front of the screen, countless audience roared. Some had tears in their eyes, some were inexplicably sad and indignant, some clenched their fists, and some were in high fighting spirit. Han Ming is guilty. At this moment, the voices of countless people gathered on both sides of the Qinhuai River, in Jin City, in the entire Huaxia, and even on the vast earth. My friend, there's nothing we can do about it. In the end, the Assyrian king, who was old and experienced, stepped forward and said with a brazen face, "Let's go." He stepped forward and said, Han Ming knows that Earth has never seen an extraterrestrial civilization. It has been in an era of Dharma decline and desolation for a long time. Cultivation is not popular, and people are conservative. The arrival of the Beihan sect will definitely attract the opposition of the human race on Earth. In order not to start a war between the human race on Earth and the Big Dipper demon clan, Han Ming had no choice but to lead the Big Dipper demon clan to Earth and then appear as the savior. However, this is not for the benefit of the Beihan sect, but for the prosperity of the civilization on Earth. He has really put in a lot of effort. You must understand more. Chapter 1742. Damn it. Han Ming Zongzi admitted it. He admitted that he was the one who manipulated the war that caused so many casualties, and he even pretended that he was doing it for your own good. The king of Assyria and Han Ming Zongzi have reached a new level of shamelessness. Indeed. I have never seen such a shameless person. In an instant, the billions of viewers in front of the screen, except for Han Ming Zongzi's diehard fans, were enraged. Their lungs nearly exploded with anger. Everyone was spitting out curses as they went berserk. Because the king of Assyria, or Han Ming Zongzi, was too shameless. He had taken advantage of the situation, but he still pretended to be innocent. He was the ugliest kind of human nature. If I rape your mother, I will say that I love your mother very much and that I did it to make your mother feel better. Can you understand me? Normally, Jiang Tian would never swear. But this time, the shameless faces of the Assyrian king and the others angered him to the extreme, and he retorted. Damn it. Awesome. I didn't expect that the sage like Kang Taechu would be so awesome when he says something nice. I admit defeat. Come on, everyone, let's say, I raped the king of Assyria and Han Ming Zongzi's mother to make them feel better. Can you understand me? The live stream room was in an uproar. Countless people slapped their legs and laughed crazily. They all felt that Jiang Tian's cursing was too satisfying, hitting the nail on the head. In fact, Jiang Tian had indeed found the core of the problem. No one could prove their motive and no one could say for sure. Let's wait and see. What was the result of the Big Dipper? Monsters wreaked havoc on the earth, causing countless deaths and injuries. At least half of the cultivators on Earth were killed. A large number of heavenly treasures, spirit veins, and cave abodes on Earth were taken over by the Beihan clan. The lifeline of the cultivation civilization in the future was controlled by the Beihan clan. The Myth Alliance also existed in name only. They had become Han Ming Zongzi's puppets and mouthpieces. Kang Taechu, the Assyrian king flew into a rage. You are too presumptuous and vulgar. How dare you speak to this old man in such a tone? Old man? You have the nerve to call yourself an old man? You're just an old man. You don't like the way I talk. You don't feel comfortable standing up, do you? Jiang Tian's face was cold. He didn't move at all and only shouted in a low voice. Kneel. A divine-grade nascent soul stage cultivator was like the child of a deity. His words were like the heavenly law, and his words were the law. The words were spoken. Endless laws were activated, and an incomparably terrifying pressure came crashing down. The Assyrian king was shocked and unleashed the power of a peak-stage nascent soul cultivator. Many kinds of laws rushed to the sky, trying to resist Jiang Tian, but found that it was not enough. Plop! The Assyrian king couldn't bear it at all. His knees bent, and he knelt heavily on the ground. His knees smashed 2 deep pits in the ground densely covered with array glyphs. Kang Te-chu, how dare you! The Assyrian king was furious. He was the descendant of the ancient king of Babylon and the master of the Tower of Babel, but now, he was forced to kneel and submit in front of billions of people. It was a great humiliation. But Jiang Tian didn't care. He pressed down again with an unstoppable force, as if there was no end to it. The Assyrian king struggled crazily and used all kinds of secret arts, but he couldn't break free. In the end, he fell to the ground like a toad. You had the chance to stand and talk, but you want to kneel, so I have to fulfill your wish. Jiang Tian flicked his fingers and said with a cold smile, "Isn't it good to be a human? Why do you have to be the dog of the Big Dipper cultivators?" Senior Tai Chu, you can't. Li Wuji and the others changed their expressions and came to persuade Jiang Tian. As Jiang Tian's supporters and followers, they naturally hated Jeffrey and his group to the bone. They wished they could eat their flesh and sleep on their skin. However, this was not the time to be happy. Even if they were detained as hostages, they would have more bargaining chips to negotiate with Han Ming Zongzi. Even if a war broke out, the Beihan sect would be afraid of the consequences. Ignoring the persuasion of the crowd, Jiang Tian looked down at the Assyrian king condescendingly and said with a look of disdain, "Who do you think you are? You are just a nascent soul cultivator. Without my spirit chi, you are just a half-step golden core perfected cultivator. Since you have received benefits from me, you should be obedient and be Kang Te-chu's dog. I didn't expect you to be so stubborn. You barked at your master when you saw a few new bones. You are a mad dog." Jiang Tian got up slowly and stepped on the Assyrian king's face. However, as an old dog that was supposed to be obedient, since it went crazy and barked at its old master, it should have been prepared to be killed. The Assyrian king was humiliated, but at the same time, he was terrified. Because he found that Jiang Tian was too powerful. He had just activated the laws that Han Ming Zongzi had taught him. Those laws were considered top-secret arts in the Beihan sect, but they still couldn't hurt Jiang Tian at all. They disappeared in a blink of an eye and didn't cause a single ripple. Sensing that Jiang Tian's murderous intent was getting stronger, Li Wuji was startled. He quickly went forward and said, "Taichu's sect master, I know what you mean. But do you really think Han Ming Zongzi cares about the lives of these dogs? Not to mention that they are the kind of dogs that are loyal to their masters as long as there are bones to eat." Li Wuji was speechless after hearing Jiang Tian's words. Bang! Jiang Tian stomped the king of Assyria into the ground, turning him into a pile of blood, flesh and broken bones. Even his nascent soul was absorbed by Jiang Tian with the divine law of Tao Tai and killed on the spot. What's the point of keeping such a stupid and bad piece of trash? To pollute the environment? What? Envoys are not killed when two countries are at war. We are the envoys of Han Ming Zongzi. How can you kill us? The king of the Black Pyramid, Sati, and the king of divine elephants of India were scared out of their wits. Their legs trembled and they yelled as they backed away. They had never thought that Jiang Tian would be so domineering. He didn't care about anything else and killed them right away. If you are the envoys of the cultivators from other planets, why do you hold important positions in the mythological alliance and do whatever you want on Earth? As Jiang Tian approached, he sneered and mocked. You are like bats. You say you have fur when you see animals, but you say you have wings when you see birds. Ha, you have taken advantage of both sides. How can there be such a good thing? Summon Han Ming Zongzi. The king of divine elephants and Sati yelled with pale faces. Han Ming Zongzi, please come. I am in danger. Suddenly, a look of determination flashed in Jeffrey's eyes as he yelled. At the same time, a stream of crimson energy was injected into a jade tablet in front of his chest. It was engraved with complicated and mysterious runes. The jade tablet flickered and its light became brighter and brighter. In the end, it suddenly exploded and turned into a beam of light that shot into the sky. At this moment, everyone was stunned. They were puzzled and unable to make up their minds. He used a secret treasure to summon Hanming Zongzi. Would he come? Chapter 1743. Boom! At this moment, the great Tao between heaven and earth rumbled and trembled. Spiritual chi tides that were tens of thousands of feet long surged in the void. On the ground, all kinds of plants grew crazily, twisting like demons and demons. It was as if these two words were enough to turn them into monsters. There were also countless Aurus core stage and building foundation stage demonic beasts that felt an irresistible pressure. They prostrated themselves on the ground and buried their heads into the ground, trembling, as if they were being suppressed by the power of heaven and earth. The laws of the world are shaking and the essence chi is surging. Is the clone of Divine Prince Hanming coming? Where's Zongzi Hanming? He should be in the space city, millions of kilometers away. How can he come here so quickly? What's the point of Jeffrey shouting like that? Li Wuji, Yi Karen, Dugu Xiao, and the others looked at each other with fear and confusion. Have you heard of the old saying, God is watching you from 3 feet above your head? It took Jeffrey a lot of effort to summon Hanming Zongzi. For a moment, his face was as pale as paper, and he was barely breathing, but his eyes were burning with the flames of madness and resentment. His hair was disheveled, and he shouted crazily, his hair was messy, and he shouted, the real soul formation cultivators, especially the powerful sacred grade ones, have their primordial spirits in the air and are connected with the laws of the Grand Tao. The world is me and I am the world. Even if you don't call out their names, they can sense you when you think about them billions of miles away. Whoever dares to say anything bad about them will be punished immediately. I'm summoning Zongzi Hanming right now. He'll be here soon. Aren't you afraid? Kang Te-chu, you'd better let me go. Or, he's millions of miles away and he's here in a second. How is that possible? Everyone was still in disbelief. All of a sudden, they saw something shocking. Who dares to hurt my disciple and believer? After a shout, a person broke through the gate of time and space and appeared in front of everyone. The man's figure was no different from an ordinary person's. He was wearing the standard robe of the Beihan sect. His face was delicate and handsome, and his eyes were as clear as water. His soft hair danced in the wind, and his temperament was like that of an immortal. Zongzi Hanming. For a moment, everyone exclaimed in disbelief. Who would have thought that he would be able to travel millions of miles at such a terrifying speed from the outer space city to here? Disregarding everything else, Jiang Tian seemed to be slightly inferior in terms of speed. This is Hanming Zongzi. In front of the screen, many people who saw Hanming Zongzi for the first time were surprised. Such an unparalleled hero who had bathed the sea of stars in blood and slaughtered a life planet easily must be magnificent and intimidating. But Hanming Zongzi was so delicate and beautiful, like an orchid in an empty valley with a drizzle, like a clear spring flowing over a clean stone in a pine forest under the bright moon, like a snow lotus that was far away from the mortal world. Is the conspiracy announced by Kang Te-chu true? Is this Hanming Zongzi really the mastermind behind the chaos caused by the demons? Is he a terrifying existence who sees life as nothing and slaughters the endless starry sky? For a time, such thoughts involuntarily appeared in the minds of many people. The anger and hatred that had accumulated in their chests were gradually dissipating. Hanming Zongzi's charm was simply terrifying. So terrifying. Be careful, leader of the Taichu Alliance. His speed is too terrifying. Has he mastered the space technique? Li Wuji, Yi Karen, and the others reminded him softly with fear in their hearts, as if they were facing a formidable enemy. The people at the scene felt different from the audience in the live-stream room. In the eyes of Li Wuji and the others, Hanming Zongzi in front of them was emitting a faint glow. His every move was natural and harmonious, as if he had merged with the great path of the world. He was like the dominating god of this world. Everything in the world and the great paths were under his control. He was omniscient, omnipotent and meticulous. Compared to Han Ming and Zongzi, it was the difference between a mortal and an immortal, a human and a god. They felt that they were incomparably small and humble from the bottom of their hearts. They couldn't help but have the urge to kneel and submit to him. Han Ming, Zongzi is here. Kang Te Chu, what are you waiting for? The king of divine elephants was rejuvenated as if he had been injected with chicken blood. He stood up and shook his fat head and big ears, exclaiming in delight and complacency. Unworthy disciple, Sai Ti, greets Lord Zongzi. Sai Ti hurriedly knelt on the ground. His pale golden face was filled with ecstasy, and his scarlet eyes were filled with madness, greed, and bloodlust. The enemy is stubborn and won't listen to our kind words. However, he is powerful and his strength is terrifying. The four of us are no match for him. We have brought shame to the name of the Beihan clan and our master. Zongzi, please kill him and wash away the shame with his blood. If Kang Te Chu is killed, his flesh and blood will be a great supplement. He must have absorbed too much heaven and earth spiritual qi, immortal materials, and divine materials to form his body. Thinking of this, he was drooling. It was no exaggeration to say that he was drooling. Ha! Kang Te Chu can cross 1,000,000 miles in one step and arrive in a flash. This is the power of a divine transformation realm cultivator. A wise man submits to circumstances. Let me go and surrender to Han Ming Zongzi. Maybe he will show mercy and spare your life. Jeffrey shouted crazily as if he had found a powerful backer. He didn't take Jiang Tian seriously at all. At this time, when they sensed Han Ming Zongzi's arrival, many cultivators felt their legs go weak and their hearts skip a beat. Tap, tap, tap. I can't believe he's here so soon. Chen Shiferi, Elder Pan Sheng, Yuan Jiankong, and the others who had just betrayed him were so scared that their teeth chattered and they almost ran away. They were not the sect masters of their respective sects, but the middle management. And their sect masters had to kowtow to Han Ming Zongzi 3 times and 9 times. They were too far away from Han Ming Zongzi, and their strength was far inferior. It was like a little rabbit meeting a prehistoric beast. They weren't even enough to fill the gaps between his teeth. Han Che Shenxi's face was also solemn, as if he was facing a great enemy. His spirit embryo trembled, and his nascent soul suddenly opened its eyes. The laws of all kinds of ice essence and snow souls trembled slightly as they wanted to attack Han Ming Zongzi with all their might. Give it a try. Jiang Tian knew Han Che was no match for him, but he didn't stop him. Because he would only be truly assured if Han Che attacked once. Yes. Master. Han Che Shenxi's face turned serious. He stepped forward without saying anything and attacked decisively. He had lived a long life and had rich experience. He had experienced extreme cruelty and internal strife in his family. He had also fought for power in the Beihan sect and followed Han Ming Zongzi to conquer the Star Ocean and many planets. In the end, he understood a principle: unless it was the kind of genius who was qualified to be called a Tao ancestor, most cultivators lived in the cracks and didn't have much independence. They relied on others or organizations. If you followed someone, you had to follow them to the end. You had to be loyal and carry out orders without hesitation. You either die or ascend to the sky. Roar! Han Che Shenxi was majestic and his aura was unparalleled. His waterfall-like long hair moved without wind. His nascent soul roared to the sky and all kinds of Dharma and Tao fragments boiled and burned in his spirit embryo. He attacked with all his strength. He didn't hesitate to burn his nascent soul, consume his origin and reduce 10% of his Dharma power, divine powers, and lifespan for this attack. At least, he could survive in front of Han Ming Zongzi. Chapter 1744. Clang! 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 The cold laws of all kinds of ice and snow essence condensed in the air, forming the shape of chains. They seemed to be made of ice and snow, carved out of white jade, exuding a terrifying cold air. They froze the space and imprisoned everything. Each of them was like a dragon, with Han Che as the center, penetrating in all directions. These divine chains formed by the laws were extremely fast. They were like giant pythons coiling around a body, crisscrossing and instantly binding Han Ming, constantly tightening. Some divine chains drilled into Han Ming's body like poisonous snakes. They were formed by endless tiny law runes, rippling and flowing endlessly. From the beginning to the end, Han Ming Zongzi did not move at all. There was not even a trace of emotion on his face. He just let Han Che do whatever he wanted. Han Ming's appearance was too handsome, giving people a childish, flawless, and weak feeling. He was like a cute little brother next door, making many female fans feel like holding him in their arms and doting on him. It felt as if Han Che was bullying Han Ming. Even if in fact, Han Che could not do anything to Han Ming at all. Han Che, you're the mad dog, biting your own master. You're too ruthless. Han Che, go to hell. Kang Tae-chu, you deserve to die too. Kang Tae-chu, aren't you going to kneel down and beg for mercy? Han Ming Zongzi is here in person. Many of Han Ming Zongzi's fans screamed crazily, loudly condemning and humiliating Jiang Tian and Han Che, crying out for Han Ming. Han Che, you didn't control 30% of the skills I taught you back then. Suddenly, Han Ming spoke. The corners of his mouth curled up with a faint smile, looking calm and relaxed. He seemed to sigh helplessly. I'm very disappointed in you. But since you've already pledged allegiance to Kang Tae-chu, I won't say anything more. These few words were said calmly and indifferently, as if they were just chatting. There was no momentum to speak of. However, it brought about an extremely terrifying psychological pressure. Han Che has already burned his nascent soul and lost his cultivation. But because at this time, everyone could feel that Han Che's aura was rapidly falling. From the peak of the nascent soul stage, it fell to the 9th level, then the 8th level, and it seemed as if it would fall even lower. Han Ming Zongzi, on the other hand, was still completely unharmed. It was as if when two people were fighting, one person would stand there and allow the other person to punch and kick him. Even if the other person used a saber to hack at him, the other person would not be injured at all. On the other hand, the person who attacked was so tired that he vomited blood and was heavily injured. It was obvious how terrifying the gap between the two of them was. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. Even though Han Che's cultivation could recover quickly, it was still terrifying. As his body struggled slightly. Bang! 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 Many of Han Che's law divine chains were shattered. Pooh! Han Che spat out a mouthful of blood and staggered backwards. His face was as pale as paper and his aura fluctuated between high and low. Laws flickered in and out of existence. This was a sign that his mind, nascent soul, and body had all been severely wounded. Han Che, you may leave. Then, Jiang Tian waved his sleeves. With Han Che's ice and snow essence laws, he could completely sweep across Earth and be almost invincible, but he was still lacking when it came to severely injuring Han Ming's avatar. Yes. Han Che heaved a sigh of relief and retreated behind Jiang Tian. Han Ming Zongzi is indeed a sacred soul formation cultivator. His primordial spirit has merged with the laws of heaven and earth and he can form an essence chi avatar anytime, anywhere on this land. Jiang Tian paced slowly and said leisurely. What? That's Han Ming's avatar. Everyone was shocked and their faces changed drastically. At this moment, everyone's hearts were filled with fear. A doppelganger formed from laws and yuan qi was actually so solid and lifelike. It could be seen down to the smallest detail. If Jiang Tian hadn't pointed it out, everyone would have thought that it was Han Ming's true self. Even a mere avatar was so powerful that it forced Han Che's cultivation level to drop. How terrifying would it be if Han Ming's true self was there? Indeed. This is only one of his avatars. Han Che glanced at everyone with a serious face and said. Soul formation grand cultivators have thousands of primordial spirits and are known to be indestructible. Normally, when a soul formation cultivator reaches the peak and his level increases, he will be reborn from a drop of blood. He can use the essence chi in the world to create a clone. He can also rebirth his divine soul by living in a statue, gathering incense and the power of will to form a clone. And sacred soul formation cultivators are much more powerful than normal soul formation cultivators in terms of avatars. Their divine souls are placed in the void and merged with the laws of heaven and earth. They are supported by the status of the world and can completely control the world, as if they are the masters of the world, or the gods nurtured by nature. Their divine souls are omniscient and omnipotent. They can directly use the energy of the world to form an avatar. They are omnipotent and meticulous. This is a real God. Who would be able to kill such a heaven-defying divine ability? Everyone was extremely shocked when they heard this. They were terrified, and their faces were as pale as paper. Because Divine Prince Han Ming has been alone in the Space City for the past 2 years and rarely fights. Hench Divine Prince sneered and said, "The cultivators on Earth, except for the Taichu Alliance Master, are too short-sighted after all. They think that Han Ming has never touched Earth, even though he is high in the sky." He looked a bit serious and said, "But in fact, he has been refining the God in his body every day and connecting it with Earth after the spirit chi recovery. He has been supported by the status of the world and has become the real master of the world. Subduing the enemy without fighting and controlling the world without moving a single soldier, this is the invasion of a sacred soul formation cultivator. This world has become his home ground." In the end, Han Che made the final decision and made the most terrifying note. "What? Doesn't that mean Han Ming has a great advantage? Senior Taichu, a powerful enemy is here. Be careful." Hearing those words, the expressions of Li Wuji, Yi Karen, and the others all changed enormously. They started to worry for Jiang Tian. "You're just a sacred soul formation cultivator. I can kill you with one slash even if you're here, let alone a clone." Jiang Tian grunted and grabbed in the air. Countless purple thunderbolts were shot out of Jiang Tian's purple lightning eyes and turned into a 1-meter-long purple lightning blade in the air. As soon as the blade appeared, the great Tao in the sky and on the ground trembled, as if it were very uneasy and trembling. Everyone also felt that their divine souls were about to be destroyed in the next moment and their bodies were about to be smashed into pieces by the purple lightning blade. Once the blade was out, it could destroy the Dharma laws and the great Tao. It could kill the demons of Jilyo and the true gods. One slash could see through all laws. Whether it was the spirit, blood chi, essence chi, Dharma laws or even the great Tao, there was nothing it couldn't destroy. "My friend, please listen to me." Han Ming's clone raised his hand to stop the terrifying thunder blade and exclaimed, as if he wanted to say something. "Once this blade is out, it will be stained with blood. Kill, then return to the scabbard." But Jiang Tian wouldn't listen to his nonsense and simply slashed out. Wherever the purple lightning blade passed, the divine Dharma laws roared. The void was annihilated and collapsed, forming a chaotic vacuum. It instantly slashed at Han Ming's clone. Han Ming's clone only had time to make a mysterious finger gesture, trying to activate the Dharma laws and the great Tao to resist, but before he succeeded, he was split in half by the purple lightning blade. Lightning flashed and the deep black hole formed a terrifying suction force. With the space black hole as the center, all sorts of laws collapsed and collapsed. The unparalleled suction force pulled the two bodies of laws apart, causing them to collapse and become chaotic. In the end, they were completely swallowed and dissipated into nothingness. Seeing this, everyone was dumbfounded for a moment. There was a dead silence. Absolute silence. Chapter 1745. At this moment, Ji Mingchuan, Jeffrey, Han Ming Zongzi and the other die-hard fans who had been clamoring for Jiang Tian to lose and begging for Jiang Tian to kneel and beg for mercy were all speechless. She was both shocked and embarrassed. They had never thought that even the clone of Han Ming Zongzi, who was as sacred as a Buddha, couldn't withstand the power of Jiang Tian's saber. They felt like their faces had been slapped and they were too embarrassed to talk back. Even the farts of the cultivators from other planets are fragrant. Even the dogs they raise are worthy of you kneeling and licking. Can you be more shameless? Jeffrey and Ji Mingchuan are geniuses. Kang Tae-chu is outdated. Who is outdated? Kang Tae-chu was no match for him. He could only kneel and surrender. Who's the one now? You all know about Han Ming Zongzi's conspiracy and they've admitted it. Why do you still support kneeling and licking their boots? Do you feel uncomfortable not being a slave? Isn't it good to be an upright person? Why do you have to be their die-hard fans? Why do you have to be their dogs? Jiang Tian's supporters such as Zhang Shisan and Chao Jianjia, as well as Jiang Tian's old friends such as Shen Lu, Lu Yating, Han Qingli, Iris and her sister, were greatly encouraged. They all began to curse at them. Facing the crazy mockery, those die-hard fans were speechless and unable to refute. After all, the result was there and their strength was clear. Jiang Tian had killed Han Ming Zongzi's clone, which proved that he was absolutely qualified to compete with Han Ming Zongzi. Besides, Jiang Tian stood on the side of Earth's interests, while Han Ming had admitted that he was the one who caused the Beidou monster's arrival and the chaos on Earth. Even if they were fanatical and die-hard, they couldn't say anything in front of the truth. At this moment, in the meeting hall, even Jeffrey, the Elephant King and Suddy were completely dumbfounded and frightened. Even the Beidou cultivators such as Hanch Shensi and Chen Shiferi were dumbfounded. They didn't expect Jiang Tian to successfully kill Han Ming Zongzi. He died just like that. After a long while, Joffrey spoke in a trembling voice. When Han Ming's doppelganger descended, its momentum was shocking, and its supernatural powers were all-powerful, just like a real god. However, when Jiang Tian's saber slashed down, it was easily hacked to death without any room for resistance. As expected of the master of the ruins of immortality. He once killed more than 100 semi-god realm cultivators. I originally thought that he was bragging, but now I know that he wasn't exaggerating at all. Invincible. 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 Senior Tai Chu is invincible. Slash at the Northern Frost Sect. My saber is thirsty for blood again. With Kang Tae-chu around, Earth is safe. At this moment, in front of the screen, more than 1 billion people were cheering, crazily spamming the screen. In particular, Jiang Tian's family members, such as Zhao Xueqing and Jiang Tian, were delighted and proud. Sasaki Haisha, Shen Mange and other disciples of Jiang Tian were also excited and cheered. Good, good, good. Kill him with one slash. At this moment, the eyes of Li Wuji, Yi Karen, Du Gushao, and the others also lit up. Their fighting spirit surged, and their confidence that had been shattered for a long time seemed to have been restored. Although it was only a doppelganger of Han Ming, Jiang Tian could kill it with one slash. Didn't that mean that Jiang Tian already had the power to fight with Han Ming? Did he also have a high chance of taking back control of the solar system? Kang Tae-chu has a high chance of winning. In time, he will even have the power to become the overlord of the Milky Way. At this moment, after seeing Jiang Tian's terrifying power, even Han Che, Chen Shiferi and Yuan Jiankong were shocked and their hearts were burning with passion. Thinking of this, everyone present bowed and became more respectful to Jiang Tian. Jeffrey, is this what you're counting on? It's just so. Jiang Tian chuckled as he looked at Jeffrey with a cold gaze. Dad, please spare my life. I know I was wrong. In the face of Jiang Tian's gaze, Jeffrey was really scared this time. He was so scared that his legs were weak and his voice was trembling. He finally remembered the fear of being dominated by Jiang Tian and finally called out the words, foster father, again. However, his Hua-Xia language was not very good, so he called him, Dad, directly. Senior Tai Chu, please give us another chance. We are willing to surrender and follow you for the rest of our lives. If you have any orders, we will obey them without hesitation. We will never betray you. The King of Divine Elephants could not bear the terrifying pressure. He knelt in front of Jiang Tian, prostrated himself on the ground, and begged for mercy. In fact, even at this moment, they thought that Jiang Tian might not be a match for Han Ming Zongzi. However, the problem was that Han Ming Zongzi could not reach the level where he could appear at any time and anywhere. He needed to be summoned with a carefully refined soul tablet. As the saying went, distant water could not quench a present thirst. Jiang Tian could easily kill Han Ming Zongzi before he arrived. Kang Te-chu, do you really want to kill us and fall out with Han Ming Zongzi? Do you really want to fight to the death? If you kill us, Han Ming Zongzi will never let you go. Sudi, on the other hand, had lost his rationality due to extreme fear. He was so desperate that he roared loudly and started to threaten them recklessly. Ha, you only remember that I'm your dad now? What were you doing earlier? You betrayed me in such a two-faced manner. You've made me very sad. Jiang Tian's eyes fell on Jeffrey, and his face was full of mockery. Jeffrey was tongue-tied and could not say anything. He just trembled and lost his soul. At this moment, a strong sense of bitterness and regret rose in his heart. Even the 3 rivers and 5 seas could not wash it away. In fact, his father, Amu, and the Atlantis civilization had rebelled against Jiang Tian on the eve of the Spirit Qi revival and fought with Jiang Tian for control of the Mythic Alliance. They were all beaten up by Jiang Tian. But Jiang Tian didn't kill him. He had given him a chance. However, he didn't cherish it. When the Big Dipper arrived, he naively thought that even if Jiang Tian didn't die in the ruins of immortality and returned one day, he would definitely be no match for Han Ming and the others. He didn't expect that Jiang Tian would be so powerful. Not only did he kill hundreds of soul formation cultivators in the ruins of immortality and become the master of the ruins of immortality, but even the soul formation cultivators of the Big Dipper and the clone of Han Ming were no match for Jiang Tian. If he was given another chance to choose, even if he was beaten to death, he would not become Jiang Tian's enemy. Never betray. Jiang Tian looked at the Elephant King and said mockingly, "Do you think I will give you another chance? Didn't I give you a chance to be loyal to me and never betray me? Do you really think that Kang Te-chu is easy to bully? Yes. Do you think I'm easy to bully? Do you think that I can't do anything to you because you have Han Ming as your backer?" The fat all over the Elephant King's body was trembling. At this moment, he wanted to cry but had no tears. He was so regretful that he wanted to buy a piece of tofu and kill himself. What Jiang Tian said was true. Didn't Jiang Tian give them a chance? He did. Moreover, he had given it to her over and over again. Not to mention the night before the recovery of Spirit Qi, the Elephant King and the others had already betrayed Jiang Tian this time. Jiang Tian had also killed Ji Muxian and the other 5 lords of heaven of Hua Xia to give them a warning and give them time to repent and admit their sins. If they had come to Jiang Tian in the past few days, knelt down and begged for mercy, and sincerely repented, Jiang Tian might not have killed them. Even if he had killed them, he might not have killed all of their families. But as Jiang Tian said, they had thought too little of Jiang Tian and too strong of Han Ming Zongzi. They thought that Jiang Tian was afraid of Han Ming Zongzi behind them and would not dare to do anything to them. Who knew that one careless move would cause them to lose the whole game? Since Jiang Tian's debut, who had he been afraid of? Who had he been afraid of? He had no fear at all. Back on Earth, he had dominated the 4 major worlds and was invincible. He had killed all gods and Buddhas who stood in his way. Since the ruins of immortality coveted Earth, he would destroy the ruins of immortality dynasty and flatten many worlds in a star system. And you, Sai Ti. Jiang Tian stepped towards Sai Ti and shouted in a deep voice, "Have you forgotten what I said? In the entire universe, who is worthy of Kang Te-chu's life and death struggle? Anyone and any force who dares to stand in my way and covet my territory will be destroyed." As he said that, he slammed his palm down. Chapter 1746. With a bang, the dimension was compressed into a piece of paper. Seth didn't even have a chance to escape or struggle, let alone fight back. He was smashed into pieces. Even the broken body, nascent soul, and divine soul were all absorbed by Jiang Tian's Taotai origin, returning divine law, like a whale sucking in water, without leaving a drop behind. The entire place went silent. Everyone was shocked to the extreme, dumbfounded. They all noticed that Jiang Tian didn't use any divine power this time. He only used his pure physical strength, but he was strong enough to crush a peak-stage nascent soul grand heavenly lord as easily as crushing an ant. Clatter, clatter, clatter. At that moment, the Elephant King and Jeffrey were so scared that their teeth were chattering like machine guns. Jeffrey even rolled on the ground without caring about his image. But Jiang Tian didn't bother to look at those ants anymore, he just waved his hand gently. Go to hell. Hansh Shensi sneered. He formed a sword with the ice soul and snow essence laws and stabbed forward mercilessly. Ah! How dare you kill me? Aren't you afraid of Han Ming's punishment? Facing the cold sword, Jeffrey was terrified. He shouted and stood up, grabbing the trident and swinging it, forming a blue shield with the law of water. However, under the sharp sword, he was unable to block it at all. Bang! With a dull thud, the azure shield shattered and his corporeal body and spirit embryo were pierced through in an instant. After his nascent soul was pierced through and frozen to death, it was ground into fine powder. Even his internal organs were turned into a bloody pulp. How dare you? How could you? Jeffrey's eyes were wide open. His pupils were full of unwillingness and sorrow. It was as if he could not believe that he was about to lead the Atlantis Sea clan to defeat the Tianqing sect, stand at the peak of this planet, and even follow Han Ming to conquer the Sea of Stars and spread the seeds of his family across the entire Sea of Stars. How could he die in the hands of Jiang Tian? No, Jiang Tian's subordinates. Unfortunately, his nascent soul was destroyed and his organs were all shattered. Even if he had some essence qi to nourish his divine soul, he couldn't last more than a few seconds. Soon, he fell to the ground, splattering a string of scarlet blood. Sigh, originally, even if Big Dipper didn't support the Myth Alliance, as long as he hibernated and remained neutral, he wouldn't have been killed. Li Wuji heaved a long sigh, his heart heavy. He hated Joffrey, of course. However, Jiang Tian would not give up easily. He was bound to go on a killing spree and wipe out the entire Atlantis civilization. In addition, the merfolk in the Bermuda Triangle had also been used as cannon fodder on Mars. This meant that the newly revived marine civilization on Earth had once again fallen into a deep slump. Alas, he was born in the royal family of the seabed. His life was too smooth sailing, and he did not go through any hardships. He could not stick to his conscience in the face of major issues. It was inevitable that he would end up like this. Yi Karen sneered. Kong Tae-chu, why must you be so ruthless? Seeing that, the Elephant King could not hold back any longer. He roared and turned into a behemoth with a human body and an elephant head. He broke through the glass wall and stepped on the air, flying toward the crystal warship, trying to escape. Do you think you can run away? Hansh Shensi snorted coldly, and the laws of ice and snow essence turned into divine chains, piercing through the void. The chilling cold instantly dragged the divine Elephant King back to the hall. The divine Elephant King had already been invaded by the laws, and his nascent soul was frozen to death. He was barely alive. Mercy! Hansh Shensi raised his sword, and the Elephant King's giant head flew out. His nascent soul was also minced, and he died instantly. At this moment, the world was dead silent. The entire Earth, more than 1 billion people, were silent in front of the screen. Sigh. 5 years ago, he was the strongest on Earth, West Earth, Heavenly State, and Star World. 5 years later, many people thought that the new era was no longer his era. But obviously, these people did not really realize Kong Tae-chu's strength. This is still his era. After a long time, Zhang Shisan came to his senses and quickly logged into Weibo and typed this sentence. Welcome back, Kong Tae-chu. Let us celebrate the Taichu Alliance leader regaining control of the Myth Alliance. From both sides of the Qinhuai River, from Gold City, from Huaxia, from the entire East, and even from the entire world, there were cheers. At this moment, the entire world seemed to have come alive. Countless people were cheering and flooding the screen. Many people could not hold back their excitement. They walked out of their rooms and came to the streets, marching and shouting, singing and dancing, welcoming the return of Jiang Tian and celebrating his regaining control of the Myth Alliance. Kang Te-chu, how dare you! Suddenly, in a majestic space city called Yuntian Palace, 1,000,000 miles away, a soft shout was heard. This soft shout was like the sound of the Great Path, descending from the sky like a great bell, instantly spreading across the land and rivers, and resounding throughout the entire earth. On earth, in the depths of the minds of billions of creatures, this voice sounded at the same time. It was like a Buddhist chant, like a celestial voice lingering in the air, covering endless territory. Everyone looked up in shock. In the sky, a figure sitting cross-legged appeared out of thin air. This person was half transparent and half real. It was completely formed by the essence chi of heaven and earth gathered by the Dharma laws. It was extremely deep and bright, surrounded by thousands of rays of light and golden light. This terrifying Dharma form stood upright in the sky. Its eyes were like the sun and the moon, and its body was glittering as if it were formed by many bright stars. It was tens of thousands of meters tall. Even though it was tens of thousands of kilometers away from Earth, half of the people on Earth could still see it clearly. It was extremely visually impactful. Under this mountain-like Dharma form, everyone felt as small as ants. Extreme fear, confusion, panic, trembling, sadness, despair, and other negative emotions instantly enveloped their hearts. It was Han Ming showing his soul formation form to deter Jiang Tian. How dare you kill my clone? This is unforgivable. Deep in the magnificent space city of the Beihan sect, Han Ming, who was cultivating and merging his divine soul with the Dharma laws of the world, suddenly opened his eyes and shouted with a pale face. Even though it was only one of his Dharma bodies, Jiang Tian had killed him in front of everyone. It was a humiliation to him, the Zongzi of the Beihan sect. Kang Te-chu, you ruined my plan and killed my subordinate divine lords. I've tolerated you for too long. You've exhausted my patience. I'm kind and merciful. I originally wanted to be gentle and didn't want to attack the humans on Earth directly. But you forced me to turn against you. Very well, I'll fulfill your wish and kill anyone who dares to resist. I'll give you 7 days to go to the space city of the Yuntian Palace of the Beihan sect and kneel down to accept your punishment. Otherwise, I'll slaughter the entire Tianqing school and wash the earth with blood. As soon as the words were spoken, a terrifying pressure descended upon them. Tens of thousands of miles away shook violently. Between the sky and the earth, terrifying waves of Dharma laws swept across like raging waves. The wind blew and the clouds surged. Layers of dark clouds piled up like pitch-black mountains. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Lightning bolts raged like dragons and pythons. Heavy rain poured down like torrential rain. In just a few minutes, many low-lying areas turned into vast swamps. Mudslides erupted, and mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. At this moment, countless creatures on earth were terrified. Chapter 1747. Rumble. Divine Lord Han Ming, please spare our lives. We know we're wrong. At this moment, more than 1 billion creatures on Earth couldn't withstand the terrifying energy. They knelt on the ground and many of them begged for mercy. Terrifying, this is too terrifying. Is this the power of a sacred soul formation cultivator? It has the power to destroy the heavens and earth and overturn the world. Han Ming's divine might was like a divine mountain that pressed down, and even the cultivators were shaken to the point they staggered and were on the verge of collapse. Their faces were pale like paper, and they were overwhelmed with shock and terror. He's indeed compatible with the Dharma laws of this world. He's like the dominator of this world, suppressing people with the power of the world. Only some golden core and nascent soul cultivators could hold on, but they still felt terrible. At this moment, many giants on Earth, including Zhao Xueqing, Li Wuji, Jiang Changgang, Hua Qingtian and Lotus Buddha, had glitters in their eyes. Their muscles tightened and their Dharma power surged crazily, trying to resist the energy. Even though this Dharma form only lasted for a few minutes, it was still terrifying and made people feel uneasy. It became a shadow in the hearts of billions of creatures on Earth. Han Ming has said that in just 7 days, the final battle is about to take place. Many people realized something and they couldn't ignore it. Han Ming showed his Dharma form and asked Jiang Tian to go to the space city of the Beihan sect to ask for forgiveness within 7 days. Otherwise, he would exterminate the entire sect and wash the earth with blood. Once the news came out, it immediately shocked the entire world. It occupied the headlines of all the major media outlets. The title was marked in bold and there was a string of giant exclamation marks. Of course, some people were terrified. But more people were enraged. Jiang Tian came back and defeated many heavenly lords on earth. He became a god on the Qinhuai River, revealed the dark secrets, set things right and regained control of the mythical alliance. He wasn't only the founder of the Tao Foundation and the pioneer of the recovery of spirit qi, but also the future and hope of Earth. And yet, Divine Prince Han Ming treated him like an ant and humiliated and threatened him. How could anyone with a bit of courage bear it? Arrogant. Too arrogant. Who does Divine Son Han Ming think he is? So what if he was a holy semi-god realm warrior? Sir God Taichu had even killed his 4 Sir Gods and split his doppelganger apart. In terms of ability, Sir God Taichu was not weak. Yet, he wanted the Grand Primordium Divine Lord to kneel and beg for mercy. This isn't an insult to the Grand Primordium Divine Lord, it's an insult to the Earth civilization. What crime did the Taichu Divine Lord commit? The one who was truly guilty was Divine Son Han Ming. He had instigated the demon race to bring chaos to the world and slaughter the common people. His sins were monstrous. Earth hasn't settled the score with you yet, and you're already spouting nonsense here. You've gone too far. Fight. Sweep through the outer space cities, wipe them out completely, and drive them out of the solar system. Kill them all. Many live-streaming channels, Weibo, Tieba, forums, and other media were filled with angry voices of condemnation. It could be said that this time, most people on Earth were enraged. However, there were also different voices and people who made sarcastic remarks. Die-hard fans were born wretched, and no one could do anything about them. Besides, Han Ming Zongzi had supported a lot of interest groups on Earth in the past 2 years. Han Ming Zongzi has swept through the star ocean and occupied countless planets like Earth. Earth can't escape the fate of being occupied. Besides, even though the demon race has caused chaos on Earth and caused some bloodshed, he has cultivated many heavenly lords. Yes, Han Ming Zongzi caused bloodshed. How many people has Kang Taichu killed since he became a cultivator? He's unscrupulous and slaughtered people along the way. His crimes are simply too many to count. I support Han Ming Zongzi. Kang Taichu's tyrannical rule must end. However, these different voices were soon drowned in the tide of the internet. Under the guidance of the media such as, Watch My Live broadcast, the public was agitated. Billions of people had been completely enraged by Han Ming. Observers such as the historian of cultivation Peter Chen and other scholars, such as Keynes and other officials, even published in the newspapers to denounce and provoke Han Ming Zongzi, saying that they would wait for the day when he came to wash the earth with blood. Countless people looked to the east, to Huaxia, to the Kunlun building on the bank of the Qinhuai River in Jin City, waiting for Jiang Tian's reply. The masters of the sects and families in the cultivation world, the dignitaries of various countries, the secret sects and the reclusive royalty, and many other forces guessed that Han Ming's strong statement and public declaration of war must be hiding a very deep conspiracy. It was very likely that he intended to anger Jiang Tian and kill him together. But then, the people were boiling and they finally got a breath of air, but Jiang Tian didn't respond at all. It was like a basin of cold water was poured over their heads, making the earth, which had finally been united, fall into a state of disunity again. For a moment, everyone was in a dilemma. Lord Taichu, Mr. Keynes, the Western world and the guardians of Hua Xia are all asking for your opinion. Mr. Chao Shixiang said on behalf of the government that Hua Xia is united and supports all your decisions. Chao Jianjia rushed over with a folder in her hand. Inside the Kunlun building, many people focused their eyes on Jiang Tian, waiting for his decision. It could be said that the fate of the entire earth was in the hands of Jiang Tian and the others, whether they fought or retreated. Du Gushao, Yi Karen, Li Wuji, and the others were sweating nervously. Many cultivators from other planets, including Han Che, also looked serious, as if they were facing a formidable enemy. A general won't send troops out of anger. In the end, Li Wuji said sincerely, Lord, you've just returned and the cultivation world on Earth has suffered a great loss in the 2-year war. We're not fully prepared. The war with the Beidou region will be a long one. Don't mind their provocation. Li Wuji bowed slightly and said sincerely. Even Han Che and the others tried to persuade him. They knew Jiang Tian was powerful, killing hundreds of soul formation cultivators in the ruins of deity and killing 4 divine lords in a day after returning to Mars. But they also knew how terrifying Han Ming was. Besides, Han Ming purposely put the battlefield in space, where they had been operating for 2 years, so Jiang Tian didn't have to take the risk at all. Honey, you don't have to be brave. We'll definitely be able to kill Han Ming when we cultivate for another year and reach the ultimate level. Even Zhao Xueqing talked to Jiang Tian through a video call. I was just drinking tea. I didn't care about that Dharma form. Jiang Tian put down his teacup and smiled. Don't worry. They're just a bunch of ants. I won't take them seriously. I'll crush them no matter what tricks they have. I'll kill all the cultivators from the Beidou region in the solar system. In 7 days, I'll sweep across the space city and kill Han Ming. Jiang Tian said softly with a disdainful look in his eyes. Everyone went silent after hearing what he said. Everyone was shocked. Jiang Tian's words were also spread around the world through the live broadcast. Everyone was excited. Li Wuji, Du Gushao, guard Hua Xia. I'll go to Mount Mang. In the end, Jiang Tian ordered the video to be turned off. He rolled up his sleeves and took the big black dog, Yi Karen, and Lu Shang, the ghost emperor of Mount Mang, on a flying sword and flew toward the ghost realm of Mount Mang. In the depths of the ghost realm of Mount Mang, Yin Qi shrouded the place. Why can't I find Yi Tianren's soul? Jiang Tian scanned the soul-nourishing arrays with his divine sense. His face was gloomy. Before Jiang Tian left Earth, he taught Lu Shang and other ghost cultivators the soul-nourishing art and built many soul-nourishing arrays, which was equivalent to recreating the underworld and creating a small 6 paths of reincarnation on Earth. The souls of the knowledgeable people who died in the battle were brought to the soul-nourishing arrays by the netherworld messengers to be nourished. They were waiting to become ghost cultivators or reincarnate and be reborn. But he didn't expect that the many soul-nourishing arrays here would be beaten to pieces. Not to mention Yi Tianren's soul, even the souls of other cultivators had disappeared. Even hundreds of ghost cultivators and netherworld messengers had disappeared. It was as if they had evaporated from the world. Lu Shang, what are you doing? Yi Karen was so anxious that he shouted. This, when I went to Jin City, Mount Mang was still fine. How could this be? Lu Shang was shivering in fear and wanted to cry but had no tears. There are remnants of laws. Jiang Tian suddenly grabbed and a section of laws fell into his hand. This section of laws was very mysterious. Yi Karen only glanced at it and felt as if his soul was about to fall into it and couldn't extricate himself. Obviously, this was a kind of law that controlled the mind. This must be the work of the Superbrain Man. Jiang Tian crushed the section of laws. Cold light shot out of his deep eyes and he shouted, although Yi Tianren and the others are dead, their soul power is still very strong. This is the best resource for the Superbrain Man to refine their soul power and nourish their divine souls. Where is the Superbrain Man's base now? The Superbrain Man was a very powerful race in the universe. They had a special bloodline and specialized in soul power. Once they evolved to the superbody state, they could change freely and the laws they controlled were ever-changing. They were very difficult to deal with. In the ancient times before the arrival of planet destruction, the ancient Earth was an extremely prosperous and eclectic cultivation planet. Many superbrain men traveled across the universe and lived there. They had once created the extremely prosperous and glorious Mayan civilization. Even now, their inaccuracy was still shocking. But then, planet destruction arrived and the world changed. The ancient heavenly court led many worlds to start interstellar travel. With the suppression of the deity trap array and many other factors, the Mayan race was exterminated and the superbrain man also retreated and relied on the crystal head to absorb the power of faith. It wasn't until the 19th century that the descendants of the superbrain man on Earth revived and used the Heavenly God Corporation as a platform to control many high-tech and energy consortiums in the Black Eagle Federation. After realizing the threat of Jiang Tian, they had a shocking battle with Jiang Tian in the Black Eagle Federation and were annihilated by Jiang Tian. They had never thought that their ancestors would return to Earth after a few years. They're still in South America at the Golden Temple. But they're much stronger than before. I heard. Yi Karen hurriedly said. It's the superbrain man. Lu Shang gnashed his teeth in hatred. In fact, the superbrain man also came from the Beta planet region. However, they had lived on Earth in prehistoric times and were the gods worshipped by the Mayan race. So, in Han Ming's conspiracy, the superbrain man took advantage of this and announced their return. They claimed to be the natives of ancient Earth and the ancestors of the ancient times. This way, they could break down the defensive mentality of the Earth civilization. Moreover, their scheme succeeded. Now, half of the people in South America and Central America believed in the Mayan gods. They worshipped them every day. This huge area fell under the control of the superbrain race. I don't care how strong they are. On Mars, the death of Ing Su and the others was related to them. Today, they stole the divine souls of Yi Tianren and the others. Today, I, Kang Te-Chu, will destroy this race. New and old hatred surged in his heart. Jiang Tian's eyes were cold. He rolled up his sleeves and stepped into the air, disappearing on the spot. He went straight to the Golden Temple in America where the superbrain man was. Chapter 1748. In a primitive jungle in South America, there was a golden temple that covered an area of 1,000 acres. Before the great changes in the world, it was still peaceful even though there were many believers here. After the revival of spirit chi, ancient temples that were buried underground rose from the ground. They were more than 1,000 feet tall and were completely made of strange metals. They were covered with ancient runes that shone brightly, giving people a sense of holiness and vastness. From afar, they were shining like the palaces of immortals. Between the heavens and the earth, there was even a terrifying power of faith that gathered in the mystical, crystal, heads. In fact, this was an array made of soul-gathering crystals. It could attract the power of faith of believers and condense it into pure soul power for absorption. When Jiang Tian arrived with Yi Karen, the large black dog, and Lu Shang, they saw numerous believers on the plaza of the Divine Temple worshipping the numerous crystal skulls on the high platform. There were as many as 10,000 people. On the platform stood many superbrain humans in golden robes. They were tall and their skin was crystal clear like glue. Even the purple veins under their skin could be seen clearly. Their eyes didn't have the sclera, only the pupils. They were dark and deep. There was a strange halo around their giant heads, like Buddhas or gods. At this time, these superbrain humans were like preachers. They looked solemn, waving their hands and chanting ancient spells. Listening to one sentence made people deeply immersed in it. It was like the sound of Buddha's chanting, vast and ethereal. The believers sacrificed their mind power to receive some kind of enlightenment and blessing. They were like a kind of pope. The believers felt a kind of holy, comfortable, and carefree feeling. They felt numb from head to toe, and their spirits seemed to have risen beyond the 9 heavens, to the world of heaven. They even had all kinds of fantasies. After the sacrifice, they felt lazy and didn't have any interest in resisting. They only wanted to do it again and again and sink into it forever. For this kind of happiness, the believers could give up everything, their dignity, their families, their friends, and their future. But in essence, it would drain their body and mind like taking drugs. Normally, believers would die young, but the superbrains would teach them some simple methods to refine their bodies, chi, and minds to help them extend their lives. Of course, this wasn't a good intention. The superbrain person was like raising animals. He was raising a group of humans to help them obtain higher levels of energy. In other words, this was a rather special technique of harvesting, and the believers were the cauldrons they cultivated. Jiang Tian saw through all of this with a single glance, but he ignored it. The demon god of hell's consciousness was as sharp as a sword and surged like raging waves, sweeping towards the depths of the divine temple. After breaking through the formations, he immediately sensed an extremely weak and familiar presence. Good. Good. Very good. Jiang Tian's eyes flashed with killing intent as he flew into a rage. He grabbed with his right hand and the purple lightning saber condensed in the air. In fact, Jiang Tian also sensed the presence of two soul formation overlords and they had already become super bodies. But Jiang Tian had nothing to be afraid of. After all, they had started out by cultivating their mind power. Once the purple lightning saber was unleashed, they could defeat their illusions with their physical strength. No matter how strong their super bodies were, no matter how many changes they had, they would still be crushed into powder. Sir, please stop. Kaboom. Spiritual power surged, as vast as the sea. Golden telekinesis floated in the air like grains of sand, covering a radius of 10 miles. Finally, the golden grains of sand rolled and surged, forming a huge human figure in the sky above the temple. This figure was in the form of a middle-aged man. He had a bald head and was extremely handsome. He wore a golden robe and his eyes shone like stars. He was the high priest of the Golden Temple and one of the 3 leaders of the superbrain human race, Gorlin. Honorable Overlord from the East, Sir Kang Te-Chu, I am the Grand Priest of the Golden Divine Temple, the Deputy Leader of the Elders of the Superbrain Divine Tribe, Gorlin. We don't have any grudges against each other. Why are you attacking me? Gorlin bowed slightly. This wasn't his real body. It was a projection of his mind power through a Dharma artifact. However, it looked incomparably real. It was so lifelike that it was even clearer and more realistic than the holographic projection technology that had been developed by humans. Why is Kang Te-Chu here? Wasn't he still in Huaxia 10 hours ago? Why did he go through the laws of the world and cross half of the planet to come to the Divine Temple? Is he going to attack? Is he going to cause trouble for the Divine Temple? Then, many believers turned around and were shocked when they saw Jiang Tian standing in the sky. Then, they became vigilant and angry. They took out their phones to record and live stream. We don't have any grudges against each other. Jiang Tian held the purple lightning blade in his hand, and laws rumbled as he broke through the void. The Superbrain Divine Tribe is evil. You seem to be fighting against the Beidou monsters, but you're actually stabbing the cultivators on Earth in the back. The chief disciple of the 3rd generation of the Tianqing school and the leader of the Guardians of Huaxia, Ying Su, died in your hands. Besides, the divine souls that Yi Tianren and the others kept in Mount Mang in Huaxia were also taken away by you. Do you think I'm blind and can't see it? I think there must be some misunderstanding, Brother Tai Chu. A glint of surprise flashed across Gorlin's face and then he said calmly, the Superbrain Divine Tribe was originally from the ancient Divine Tribe. The Superbrain gods were originally natives of ancient Earth. They once saved thousands of people, expanded their territory, and gave birth to the powerful Mayan civilization. Then, the spirit chi on Earth declined and the deity ground was opened. That was why the Superbrain Divine Tribe went to other planets. The Superbrain gods may have built a strong civilization in the outer realms, but they miss their home planet all the time. This time, I came back to acknowledge my ancestors and help the human race on Earth fight against the alien invaders. I also want to contribute to Earth's great new era. We're just being nice. Unfortunately, Brother Tai Chu doesn't appreciate our kindness and misunderstood us. Ha ha ha, you're pretending to be a whore. I can't believe there's someone as shameless as you in the world. Jiang Tian was so angry that he laughed. His eyes were calm and cold, causing people's hearts to palpitate. He said coldly, "Fine, we each have our own version of the story. There's no point in talking anymore. Whether it's true or false, remove the seal and open the door." Jiang Tian held the thunder saber, which let out thunderous sounds and dharma laws. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the sky for dozens of miles. Apparently, the heavenly thunder laws had been triggered. Many colorful lightning balls quickly condensed. Each of them had a radius of 1,000 meters and contained terrifying energy that was far more powerful than sunflower lotuses and nuclear weapons. It was enough to destroy everything. The Golden Temple is the ancestral land of my race. It was our autonomous area in the ancient times. Even the ancient sages of the East couldn't enter without permission. Gorlin's face was filled with anger. His eyes were filled with murderous intent as he questioned coldly. He asked coldly, "What right do you have to enter?" "I'm the sect master of the Myth Alliance. All the cultivators on this planet have to listen to my orders. Otherwise, I'll kill you," Jiang Tian said leisurely. "You're the sect master of the Myth Alliance. Have you been publicly elected? Have you been recognized by the major forces? Have you had a coronation ceremony?" Gorlin's face was full of mockery. He looked down at Jiang Tian as if he was looking at an ant. He asked coldly, "You're the sect master of the Myth Alliance. I remember that the sect master of the Myth Alliance was Jeffrey, but you killed him for no reason. You're the sect master of the Myth Alliance. Have you been recognized by me? Kang Te Chu, I know you've leveled the ruins of deity. However, the ruins of deity is just a dying planet. It doesn't mean anything. I know you've killed many soul formation cultivators on Mars, but they might not be more powerful than me." He waved his hand as if he were driving away a fly, as if he were doing Jiang Tian a great favor. "Kang Te Chu, you ignorant kid. Hurry up and leave. After all, my temple didn't suffer any damage. Since it's your first offense and you don't know how powerful the super brain divine race is, I'll be merciful and let you go today. I'll give you 3 breaths to think about it. You'll die today, but if you hand over the divine souls of Yi Tianren and the others, I won't take revenge. I'll go to your home planet and exterminate the super brain divine race." Jiang Tian snickered and said, "Kang Te Chu, you've gone too far. You've killed too many people, haven't you? You only know how to kill every day. The people of the Golden Temple are friendly to the universe. How can you fight with them?" An old believer with white hair and a ruddy complexion suddenly stepped in the air, stopped Jiang Tian, and scolded in a deep voice. "That's right. You're so cold, cruel, and unscrupulous. You've committed monstrous crimes of slaughter. You'll suffer retribution one day." A 16 or 17-year-old girl believer stopped Jiang Tian. She looked innocent and cute, but she was only a chi refinement cultivator. Her bright eyes were full of hatred, as if Jiang Tian had killed her father. "Stop it. You're still too ignorant after all. Big Dipper's foundation is very deep. The strength of the superbrain deities is not something you can imagine." A woman who had brought her 14-year-old son over to offer worship also stopped Jiang Tian at this moment. "Kang Te Chu, do you really want to fight? They're the gods that we believe in. If you want to fight with them, you'll have to kill us first and step over our dead bodies." A worker also jumped up and shouted. "Yes, if you want to fight, you'll have to kill us first." In an instant, the tens of thousands of fanatical believers at the scene all soared into the sky, forming a dense human wall that covered the sky, blocking Jiang Tian. They were the most fanatical of the fanatics. They were even more extreme than those on the internet. After all, they had experienced intracranial orgasms. It was as if they were addicted to drugs. They had a deep-rooted belief and obedience towards the super-brain divine spirits. The human heart can be used. In this world, the greatest path of cultivation is not the laws of heaven and earth, but the art of soul control. At this moment, Gorlan's face was filled with pride and mockery. He sneered in his heart. Kang Tae-chu, let's see what you can do. Didn't you claim to be the savior of the earth? Didn't you fight for the human race on earth? But now, these believers of the divine temple are of the same race as you, but they see you as an enemy. If you want to kill them, you'll have to bear the crime of killing them. I'm afraid that you'll be forced to retreat. In fact, those fanatical believers also had the same thought. Because although Jiang Tian had killed many people and was invincible in the past few years, he had always been merciful to those who followed him, especially those of the same race. You want to kill us? Don't you feel ashamed to be the leader of the Myth Alliance? Many people had the same thought and were fearless. On the internet, many people insulted Jiang Tian, but they did not see Jiang Tian use any terrifying methods to purge and suppress them. He could not bear to. He could not bring himself to do it. Oh. You want to die? I'll grant you your wish. Jiang Tian smiled casually, his eyes cold. Even ants drag out their lives, but you don't. Your brains must be damaged. If that's the case, don't waste your food by living. Suddenly, Jiang Tian slashed mercilessly with his saber in front of his chest. Chapter 1749. As Jiang Tian slashed with his blade, the Dharma laws roared and swept out like a tsunami. Colorful thunderbolts intertwined in the thunder ball and merged with each other. They kept absorbing the thunder essence chi in the air as they flew. In the end, they became 1 mile large and covered the crowd. Crack! The area within a few kilometers was instantly devoured by the 5-colored thunderbolts. With the square as the center, more than 10,000 people disappeared. All the trees and rocks were crushed into pieces by the thunderbolts. The thunderbolts weren't satisfied. They spread in all directions and turned the area into a sea of 5-colored thunderbolts. Everyone who saw this scene through the satellite broadcast was dumbfounded. Jiang Tian's attack was too powerful. It was way more powerful than a nuclear weapon. Some intelligence agencies even used supercomputers to calculate that the attack was as powerful as 100 nuclear weapons. And this was just a casual attack from Jiang Tian. Whoosh! A mushroom cloud rose and the thunderbolts dissipated. Gradually, people could see what was going on. More than 10,000 people were gone. All the trees in the rainforests within dozens of miles were shattered. Even the mountains were flattened and the rocks and soil were turned into crystals. Only the golden temple was still standing. It was covered by layers of golden light shields. Jiang Taichu, how dare you go on a killing spree and attack your own kind? You're not worthy of being the leader of the Myth Alliance. When Gorlan saw this, he pretended to be angry and roared. At the same time, the live broadcast of the Golden Temple was still on. Hundreds of millions of people around the world were still watching. He didn't care about the lives of his followers. After all, it would only take a few seconds to train them. He only wanted to provoke the people on earth to hate Jiang Tian. Kang Tae-chu, you're despicable. You're inhuman. Overthrow Kang Tae-chu's tyrannical rule. As a matter of fact, the believers of the Golden Temple, the extraterrestrial cultivators and Ji Mingchuan's and Jeffrey's diehard fans indeed hated Jiang Tian to the core. Their emotions were stirred up and they were all spamming the live stream channels and shouting on social media. In fact, Jiang Tian didn't care about these opposing voices at all, just like how a lion wouldn't care about the roars of ants. In any era, in any action, there would be different voices. If he minded, if he was disturbed, how could he do great things? Jiang Tian looked at Gorlan indifferently and shouted coldly, "Hand over the souls of Yi Tianren and the others. Otherwise, I will exterminate your entire clan with the next slash." Kang Tae-chu, this golden divine temple was left behind by the super brain god tribe from the ancient mythological era. It has been reinforced by our formation. How can you break it? Gorlan sneered. Ha ha ha, Kang Tae-chu, you are too ignorant. You're just an ant. Do you think you can overturn a mountain? Many of the superbrain humans were laughing maniacally in the divine temple. Hm. Jiang Tian snorted and his eyes were filled with anger. This time, he finally used his true power. Boom! The nascent soul in the infant fetus opened its eyes. Behind Jiang Tian, a 10-meter-long divine disk that looked like a galaxy suddenly appeared, emitting a dazzling light. The part that represented the Kunpeng speed divine law turned into beams of light and entered Jiang Tian's hand, turning into a strange long blade. This blade was only 3 meters long, but the dimension around it kept collapsing and turning into a black hole. It was as if it could split the heavens and earth and divide yin and yang. The silent destruction blade. Activate all the restrictions. Seeing this, even Gorlin was shocked and his face became serious. Rumble. Dazzling golden dragons rose up from the golden divine temple. 81 dragons coiled around each other with earth-shaking roars, forming an extremely heavy barrier that represented a supreme formation. Then, all kinds of talisman arrays lit up. White tigers, golden lotuses, fire phoenixes, mountains and rivers appeared and formed layers upon layers of protective barriers. There were 50 to 60 layers and each layer was awe-inspiring. They had reached the immortal level and could withstand the attacks of a soul formation overlord. Break! Jiang Tian didn't change his expression. He slashed with a cold look in his eyes. Swish! The Nirvana Void shattering saber slashed at the array shields. Like a hot knife cutting through butter, it slashed through the first layer of the protective barrier, and then it slashed through the second layer, the third layer, the fourth layer. Until the 30th layer, it was like an arrow at the end of its flight, powerless to continue. The 30th layer of the array shield only shook a few times before it recovered. Ha, Kang Tae-chu, now you know how terrifying the artifact forging and technology of the super brain race are. You won't be able to break the array shield. Gorlin was shocked at first, but when he saw that Jiang Tian couldn't break the 30th layer of the array shield, he was full of confidence and shouted. No matter how strong you are, you're just a nascent soul heavenly lord. You're not a soul formation cultivator or a divine lord. At this moment, he was extremely arrogant. You're just SSO. Although the spirit chi on earth has recovered, the orthodoxy of cultivation has been cut off. Your cultivation method is too inferior. That's the only thing that limits you. If you leave the dark side and join the cultivators of the Beta sect, you'll be able to reach the ultimate level. He said with disdain. Do you still want to fight? There are enough energy crystals in the array base. The array shield can be restored immediately. Really? Jiang Tian's face didn't change. Suddenly, the divine disk behind him spun rapidly. The many laws were converted into the Chaos Law Divine Rule, and then into the Kunpeng Divine Rule. The Nirvana space-breaking saber in his hands suddenly extended to 100 meters long. As soon as the Nirvana space-breaking blade appeared, the space within a radius of 10 miles trembled uneasily. Spatial cracks appeared. Terrifying spatial collapse and annihilation appeared around the blade. The rapid collapse created a spatial storm that was extremely terrifying. What? At this moment, even Gorlin was shocked. They didn't expect that the strength Jiang Tian had just used was only 1/10, or even 1/10. Boom! When the second slash came down, many of the protective formations were like tofu that had been sliced by a sharp blade. They were easily torn apart. Even the Golden Temple had a huge crack. Jiang Tian even went into the Golden Temple with the blade. At this moment, the world went silent. In front of the screen, more than 1 billion people were speechless. They only felt that the figure was like an omnipotent god who could destroy everything, making people feel awe and want to worship and kneel on the ground. Chapter 1750. The American residents who were hundreds of miles away from the temple felt the earth quaking and the mountains shaking. Many of their houses collapsed. If the local government hadn't warned them in advance and moved them to the refugee camps, there would have been a large number of casualties. people saw many giant mushroom clouds rising. The ground was shaking, the lake was boiling, and the mountains were collapsing. With the Golden Temple as the center, the ground within 100 square miles had sunk dozens of meters. It was as smooth as a mirror, as if a basin had appeared on the ground out of nowhere. I can't believe the power of that attack is so terrifying. The laws of the world are 10 times harder than before. Even if 1,000 nuclear weapons were released at the same time, they might not be able to cause such terrifying damage. In the Pentagon, Keynes and many generals were shocked, as if they had seen a god. According to their calculations, Jiang Tian's attack would have been enough to completely destroy the entire South American continent before the recovery of spirit qi. The Golden Temple wasn't made of real gold, but a kind of space metal. It was said that even the fire of the stars couldn't burn it, but Jiang Tian had destroyed it at the moment. Damn it! Gorlin's projection roared and suddenly disappeared. Then, there was an earth-shattering explosion. The Golden Temple was torn apart. Blood splashed and broken limbs flew in the air. Many people rushed out of the Golden Temple. Jiang Tian's will to fight soared. He was as strong as a dragon as he chased after them. He slashed with his blade and was invincible like a blood-soaked fiend. In the blink of an eye, another dozen or so nascent Soul Stage Super Brain Divine Tribe members were killed. With Gorlin as the leader, the 3 Soul Formation Stage Super Brain Divine Tribe members hurriedly took the Super Brain Divine Tribe members into the mountain-like golden warships. In the blink of an eye, the warships rose into the sky and flew toward the outer space. Apparently, they had sensed the threat of Jiang Tian and wanted to escape to the outer space city to join Han Ming's troops. Dozens of battleships were running away. Huge cannons extended out of the battleships, aiming at where Jiang Tian was in the Golden God Temple, ready to fire. Those cannons were able to shoot Dharma laws and even Dharma laws. They were as powerful as Koalian weapons and far more powerful than nuclear weapons. Jiang Tian was not afraid at all. He trod on the void and cast the Kuan Peng at his fastest speed. His body was enshrouded in divine light, and the divine disk behind him spun slowly. It was like an eternal furnace that provided Jiang Tian with endless energy, allowing him to speed up rapidly. Like a flickering light, he chased after the warships. Fire! Following Gorlin's order, the spaceships immediately opened fire. Light pillars of law pierced through the void and shot towards Jiang Tian. However, Jiang Tian had already formed the chaotic divine body and was almost indestructible. He could be said to be the strongest and strongest in the universe. How could those ordinary light pillars hurt him? Rumble. Between heaven and earth, there was a terrifying sound of laws shattering. It was as if heaven and earth were collapsing and the sun and moon were hanging upside down. There were many giant pits behind Jiang Tian. Each of them was as deep as a lake, which looked terrifying and terrifying. But Jiang Tian didn't slow down at all. He caught up with the ships in a blink and slashed with his blade. In a heartbeat, the indestructible warships that could resist nuclear weapons and even sunflower lotuses were cut into pieces. They fell to the ground with soaring flames and some even exploded on the spot, turning into liquid metal. The superbrain cultivators inside were immediately reduced to ashes. Before the other battleships left the atmosphere, Jiang Tian had already arrived above the largest battleship where Gorlin was. He slashed the battleship in half and then grabbed Gorlin and the other 2 Soul Formation cultivators who were severely injured. Gorlin was obviously bluffing. The so-called superbrain divine race was actually better at researching and making Dharma artifacts. They made use of external materials and they were technologically advanced. However, they were actually weaker than Divine Lord Scorpio and Divine Lord Astral Fire in terms of power. Now, what else do you have to say? Give me the divine souls of Yi Tianren and the others. Jiang Tian placed his hands behind his back and looked down at Gorlin and the other 2 divine lords who were trapped by the sea-calming ice god Dharma laws. At that moment, Gorlin and the other 2 godly lords were severely injured by Jiang Tian's solitary destruction void-splitting blade. Their golden robes were torn apart, their skin was torn, their divine treasures were damaged and their gods were half dead. Even their soul energy was destroyed by Jiang Tian. I'll give it to you. Please spare our lives, Divine Lord of the Taichu. Gorlin was terrified and he immediately took out an arrayed disc to nourish his soul. Yi Tianren's divine soul was being nourished and it was flickering. Divine Lord, we were forced to do this. Han Ming Zongzi is too powerful. We didn't dare to disobey him. Divine Lord, please spare our lives. We're willing to follow you, Gorlin and the others cried out in fear, tears and mucus flowing down their faces. Of course, they knew that Jiang Tian was at the nascent soul level and should be called a heavenly lord. However, Jiang Tian was powerful enough to crush normal soul formation cultivators like slaughtering chickens and dogs. He certainly deserved the title of a divine lord, the most powerful one among the divine lords. Jiang Tian raised his hand to retrieve the disc. Seeing that Yi Tianren's soul was still intact, he was relieved. He frowned and shouted, "What about Ing Su and the others?" "We've already devoured it." Gorlin's face was ashen as he spoke with a trembling voice. Wei Feilong, Zhao Yuankuan, Hu Qingtian, Yi Zhantian, Ing Su, the 9 elders of Hongmeng. Jiang Tian closed his eyes slightly, and a trace of pain flashed across his face. In his mind, the voices and smiling faces of his many disciples and comrades appeared. Of these people, which one of them wasn't a talented person? Which one of them wasn't an upright man? In order to protect Earth, they were not afraid of death. They fought against the extraterrestrial demons without any regrets. Jiang Tian, of course, was not willing to sit and watch them fall. However, even though Jiang Tian had formed the 9 orifices divine infant and was known as the child of an entity, there were still some things he couldn't do at the moment. Everyone's souls were devoured, and their memories were melted and annihilated, turning into pure spiritual energy that became the resources for others to advance in their cultivation. This was not something that Jiang Tian could restore. What a pity! Jiang Tian's regret and pain eventually turned into anger. His eyes flashed coldly as he stared at Gorlin and the other 2. He slowly raised his right hand and said coldly, "Gorlin, the 3 of you have committed unforgivable crimes. You should pay with your lives for the cultivators on Earth. Your clansmen should also be buried with them. Divine Lord, please spare our lives. Divine Lord, I'm Han Ming's right-hand man. If you don't kill us, we can definitely mediate and put out the fire of war that's about to burn. Senior Tai Chu has already killed too many of Han Ming's subordinates. If you kill us, I'm afraid Han Ming will be furious and send many spaceships to Earth. By then, no one will be able to stop them. Ing Su and the others are already dead. Even if you kill us, they won't be able to come back to life. The Divine Lord of the Tai Chu is wise and resourceful, so you must know that people should look ahead. You should make a wise decision between 3 more powerful, loyal allies and a group of strong enemies." Gorlin and the other 2 were so scared that their faces changed drastically. They were like stray dogs, constantly kowtowing, half begging for mercy, and half threatening as they shouted. "Ha, can't stop Han Ming. Who does he think he is? You're using him to threaten me. You've underestimated Kang Tae Chu. Indeed. They can't be brought back to life. However, it's only right to kill you and avenge them." Jiang Tian chuckled. Suddenly, he slapped with his right hand mercilessly. With a loud bang, this palm directly smashed the 3 divine transformation realm cultivators into meat paste. Even the gods were crushed into pieces. Jiang Tian absorbed all of their mental energy, then used the special ability of the Super Brain Clan to connect their souls and used the Karma-severing curse, using the hell-suppressing demon god's soul to trace back to their roots, killing all of the Super Brain humans that escaped. Chapter 1751. Senior Tai Chu, we're sorry for not taking good care of the divine souls of the heroes. Please punish us, Divine Lord. At this time, the messengers of hell from Mount Mang, who were captured by Gorlin and the others, also broke free from the restriction and walked out. They knelt in front of Jiang Tian and called him Divine Lord. Their bodies trembled as they felt guilty. "Lu Shang, take them back to Mount Mang." Remember, repair all the arrays and train these messengers of hell. If there's another battle, you have to do your part. The divine souls of the heroes shouldn't be destroyed. Jiang Tian didn't punish them. After all, they had done their best. Yes. Divine Lord Taichu. In the end, only Yi Tianren's divine soul was left. Lu Shang's heart was heavy and ashamed. After kowtowing, he left with the messengers of hell. Jiang Tian calmed his emotions, and only then did he bring Yi Karen and the large black dog and fly off into the distance. My lord, where are we going? The big black dog turned into a purple gold divine dragon, and Jiang Tian sat cross-legged on his back. After all, it was a divine beast of the starry sky. Its speed was not much slower than Jiang Tian's. Jiang Tian looked at the sky. In the eyes of others, it was a dead deep space, but in Jiang Tian's eyes, it was a mountain-like battleship. There were so many of them that they were like a plague of locusts. They were close to Earth and blocked the entire planet. Han Ming's army has begun to move towards Earth. Jiang Tian's face was gloomy and his eyes were flickering. He said, I'm going back to Tianqing School to cultivate in seclusion. It's time to break through to the 4th or 5th level of the nascent soul realm. What? Break through to the 5th level of the nascent soul realm? The big black dog was shocked. It's not impossible for me to break through to the later stage of the nascent soul realm. Jiang Tian said leisurely. The last time he cultivated in seclusion was in the fallen immortal sea above the ruins of immortality. That time, he broke through to the 3rd level of the nascent soul realm and came out of seclusion. He defeated the entire empire of the ruins of immortality and killed hundreds of soul formation realm cultivators. He completely dominated the entire ruins of immortality. But after that, he did not go into seclusion. He had created a clone for Zhao Xueqing and returned to Earth. But in the battle in the ruins of immortality, he had gained too much. Including the blood essence of the past divine emperors and Sung Ming, it was enough to push him to the late stage of the nascent soul realm, not to mention the many ordinary soul formation realm cultivators. On the way back, although Jiang Tian did not go into seclusion, he still cultivated diligently every day. Now, he was only one step away from the 4th level of the nascent soul stage. At this time, the war was coming. Jiang Tian should have a small secluded meditation and rush to the late stage of the nascent soul realm. At that time, whatever bullshit Han Ming Zongzi, he would crush him into dregs. When Jiang Tian rushed to Sidoni's Tianqing School, the whole world was in an uproar. The Taichu Divine Emperor of the Golden Divine Temple killed 3 soul formation cultivators and many members of the Super Brain Divine race. None of them escaped. When the news spread, the whole world was shocked. The entire Earth was in an uproar. Billions of people were thrilled. Jiang Tian had killed the 5 most powerful heavenly lords of Huaxia, Jeffrey, and many other important members of the Myth Alliance. Although they were powerful, they were only puppets supported by the Beihan sect on Earth after all. In the eyes of the world, there was a huge difference between them and the real enemies from other planets. Although Hansh Divine Prince and other cultivators from other planets said that Jiang Tian had killed Astral Fire, Tai Sha and other divine emperors from other planets on Mars, there was no proof after all. Many cautious people still had reservations. But this time, it was different. Under the witness of more than 1 billion people, Jiang Tian had destroyed the Golden Temple and killed 3 semi-god realm warriors. Moreover, he had killed them in a crushing manner. Therefore, the shock it brought was imaginable. This means that the cultivators from other planets aren't invincible. What deities from other planets? Bullshit. They're just ordinary people. With the Divine Lord of the Taichu sect, Earth will stand tall and we won't be afraid of other planets. One day, Earth may even be able to stand proudly in the forest of cultivation civilizations in the Milky Way, and not be weaker. This time, not only will we defeat Han Ming and the others of the Beihan sect, but we'll also go across the Star Ocean and attack the Dipper sect. Some of Jiang Tian's supporters were thrilled. They went to the streets and shouted with passion. Although it seemed like Jiang Tian had easily killed Gorlin and the other two divine monarchs, they couldn't be underestimated. Even in the Northern Dipper divine monarchs, they were existences that ruled over a star. Today, they were actually killed by Jiang Tian with a wave of his hand. This imperceptibly boosted everyone's confidence and morale. Because of the 2 years of chaos, the humans on Earth had witnessed the power of the cultivators from other planets and truly felt how weak they were. Almost half of the cultivators on Earth had died, so the idea of failure became popular. And Jiang Tian's battle at the Golden Divine Temple in South America was like a shot of adrenaline that gave Earth a glimmer of hope. While the world was in an uproar, Jiang Tian came to Tianqing School. Sect Master is back. The whole family, King Arthur, Sita Shao, Lotus Tathagata, Sasaki Kaisha, and other disciples and relatives all came out to welcome them. Jiang Tian didn't see Huang linger, but he didn't care. His disciples were guarding different places around the world, and Shen Mange was guarding Huaxia. Son, you are finally back. Why were you gone for so long? Do you know how I have been in the past few years? Zhang Wanqing, who had some wrinkles at the corner of her eyes, hugged Jiang Tian tightly. She was crying, laughing, blaming and rejoicing at the same time. After several years of cultivation, Zhang Wanqing had also reached foundation establishment. Originally, her appearance wouldn't have changed, but in the 4 or 5 years after Jiang Tian left, she missed her son and was filled with worry. Every day, she couldn't sleep, and there were actually traces left behind by the passage of time. It's good that you are back. Let's not talk about the past. Jiang Zhixing persuaded. Sigh, what a pity for all parents. Jiang Zhixing was wiping his tears silently. He wanted to come and see Jiang Tian, but he restrained himself and maintained the posture of a strict father. Jiang Tian also had mixed feelings. This grandson of mine really doesn't let me down. Not only did he come back victorious from the expedition to the ruins of immortality, but he also regained the power of the Mythology Alliance. He is now the pillar of Earth and the only hope. Jiang Chang'an was very comforted. He looked around and said proudly. He's Dad. A little girl of 5 or 6 years old with 2 braids, wearing a small t-shirt and shorts, showed her tender arms. From afar, she looked like a porcelain doll. Her long eyelashes fluttered as she looked at Jiang Tian timidly. This is Jiang Beibei. She is so big now. Jiang Tian saw his daughter for the first time. She was so beautiful, so cute and healthy. For a moment, his heart was filled with mixed feelings. His eyes were hot and he almost cried. Chapter 1752. Yes, this is your daddy. Haven't you always wanted to see your daddy? Call him daddy. Zhao Xueqing squatted down and said softly. I won't. I don't have a daddy. Jiang Beibei became even more bashful. Her little face turned red, and she threw herself into Zhao Xueqing's arms. She left Jiang Tian with her back facing him, but she kept blinking her big watery eyes and peeking at Jiang Tian. Silly girl, if you don't have a daddy, where are you from? Zhao Xueqing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She scratched her little nose and said angrily. The little girl said in a childish voice, Mommy gave birth to me. Ha! A child's words carry no harm. God is so cute. The people around them all smiled kindly. However, Zhang Wanqing and the other family members felt sad. Jiang Tian had been away for 5 years. The little girl had been taken care of by everyone. Although she didn't suffer much, she lacked fatherly love, which was normal for other children. To some extent, she didn't live as happily as the children of ordinary families. She often looked up at the sky alone in the yard with a space telescope to search for the Alpha Centauri star system. She hoped that one day she could see her daddy's figure descending from the sky. However, every time she hoped, she was disappointed. It was normal for her to feel a little resentful and alienated. Beibei, he's really your daddy. Call him daddy. Zhang Wanqing walked over and said seriously with a straight face. No. Jiang Beibei said stubbornly. Jiang Tian quickly stopped her and said, Mom, forget it. I just came back. It's normal for Beibei to be a little shy. Give her some time to adapt. At this time, the purple and gold dragon turned into a big black dog and ran over like a calf. It said in human language, Beibei, do you want to ride a big horse? Uncle Dahe, you're back too. Jiang Beibei's eyes lit up. She rushed over and hugged the big black dog's neck. She rubbed her little head and said softly, Beibei missed you so much. Lie down, I want to ride a big horse. Jiang Tian was speechless. In front of my daughter, I'm even worse off than the large black dog. Furthermore, the large black dog was really bold. You actually called yourself Jiang Beibei's uncle. Could it be that you wanted to address me as your brother? The large black dog smiled slyly, and said, if you want to ride a big horse, sure. But you have to call him Daddy. Daddy loves you very much. He brought you a lot of spirit fruits and a puppet beast. Jiang Tian was also too excited. For a moment, he forgot about the gift he brought for his daughter. He quickly took out a fruit of embryonic origin and said with a smile, Girl, for you. The fruit of embryonic origin looked a little like a cherry, but it was a little bigger. It was the size of a child's fist and was sparkling and translucent like a red gem. It looked sweet and juicy, causing people to salivate. Inside it, there were streams of spiritual energy circulating like clouds. The level of this spirit fruit is not low. However, Zhao Xueqing revealed a worried expression. The spiritual energy of this spirit fruit was very abundant. Only foundation establishment cultivators could refine it. If ordinary people ate it, their meridians would probably explode and they would die. It was like how 100-year-old ginseng was very nutritious, but if one ate too much, they would also feel hot and have a nosebleed. Mom, can't I eat it? Jiang Beibei's gluttonous nature was completely exposed. A drop of sparkling saliva flowed out of the corner of her mouth. Her little hand had already reached over, but when she saw this scene, she retracted her hand. It's fine. She has a special constitution. Jiang Tian smiled faintly, and then stuffed it into Jiang Beibei's little hand. Jiang Beibei turned her back to him. Like a little hamster, she ground her fine silver teeth and ate at an extremely fast speed. Is it good? Jiang Tian asked gently. Yes, yes, yes. The little girl kept nodding, but her eating speed was not slow at all. Soon, she finished a fruit of embryonic origin and turned to Jiang Tian. Is there more? Jiang Tian directly took out a bag. That's great. Jiang Beibei finally smiled. After receiving it, she held it tightly in her arms and picked up another fruit to eat quickly. After that, Jiang Tian took out a shiny golden puppet puppy. This puppy had a demonic beast soul planted in it. Jiang Tian had refined it and made it obey his orders. Squat down. Get up. Roll over. Bow. Jiang Beibei commanded as if it was her own arm. With a command, the puppy immediately moved accordingly. Jiang Beibei loved it so much that she could not put it down. What do you think of the present from Dad? Zhao Xueqing was inspired. It's delicious and fun. Jiang Beibei smiled sweetly and stole a glance at Jiang Tian. Her big watery eyes finally showed traces of affection. However, when Jiang Tian smiled at her, the little girl immediately retracted her gaze and looked at the big black dog. Uncle Big Black, ride the big horse. If you don't call him Dad, you can't ride the big horse. The large black dog placed his paws on his hips and acted as if he was a god. Your father has even more delicious and fun things to eat. If you don't call me Daddy, then I'll be your father. If you don't call him Dad, he might give them to other children. The little girl was in a dilemma, but was tempted by delicious food, toys, and riding a big horse. In the end, she could only move to Jiang Tian's side and call softly, Dad. I. Amidst everyone's kind laughter, Jiang Tian responded happily. He picked up his daughter and said with a smile, "Come, ride the big horse." "Master, I'm coming." The big black dog shook his body and transformed into a 300-meter-long purple gold true dragon. "Ah, Uncle Big Black has become a dragon." Jiang Beibei's eyes almost popped out. She was so shocked that the fruit of embryonic origin fell to the ground. She was not afraid, but the sudden expansion was indeed a little shocking. "Don't be afraid." Jiang Tian carried his daughter and jumped up. The purple gold true dragon instantly soared into the sky and dived into the sea of clouds. It sometimes roamed quickly, sometimes dived down to the ground, and sometimes shuttled through the mountains. It was like a roller coaster, extremely exciting. "Aw, Dad, Uncle Big Black is so awesome." Jiang Beibei screamed with joy from time to time. When she was scared, she hugged Jiang Tian tightly and buried her head in Jiang Tian's neck and closed her eyes. Children were easy to coax. After only half an hour of meeting, Jiang Beibei and Jiang Tian had become completely familiar with each other. The estrangement between them was gone, and she called him Dad affectionately. She even asked Jiang Tian to tell her a bedtime story at night. Jiang Tian accompanied his parents to have a home-cooked meal. The family had not seen him for 5 years, so it was naturally lively and joyful. At night, Jiang Tian told Jiang Beibei a bedtime story and coaxed her to sleep. Only then did he stroll under the moonlight and chat with Zhao Xueqing. "It's so happy to be together as a family." Zhao Xueqing sighed faintly. Under the moonlight, Jiang Tian and Zhao Xueqing strolled on the cobblestone path hand in hand. Streams of clear spirit spring water gurgled on the clean stones, making pleasant tinkling sounds. The wind blew gently, and the orchids swayed along the path, emitting a tempting fragrance. In the pool, the purple gold true dragon leaned against a huge rock and slept on its back, making light snoring sounds. Many white cranes and spirit birds were sleeping next to each other. This place was peaceful, making people feel that time was peaceful. Zhao Xueqing clearly remembered that on the day Jiang Tian went straight into the sea of stars and left Earth, the scenery was also quiet and peaceful. At that time, she was very worried about Jiang Tian's risky actions. Only 5 years had passed, but the world had already undergone great changes. The sea had turned into mulberry fields, the earth was in chaos, and there were foreign invasions. But fortunately, Jiang Tian destroyed the empire of the Ruins of Immortality and became the Lord of the Ruins of Immortality. He returned safely, which made her feel warm and satisfied. Chapter 1753. Yes. Jiang Tian put his arm around Zhao Xueqing's shoulder and looked at the surrounding scenery with longing. He revealed a smile. The warmth and touch of his daughter's small and delicate body seemed to still be there. The moment he hugged his daughter, he felt that the 5 years of bloody battles, cruel expeditions, and all kinds of risks were all worth it. The best defense was offense. If he didn't go to the ruins of deities, they would have already come and the people on Earth would be in a terrible situation. No egg would remain intact when the nest was overturned. The Tianqing school might have been destroyed and even his family might not be able to survive. But the deity trap array was torn apart and the spirit chi was restored. It did attract the Big Dipper army. Zhao Xueqing suddenly sighed, her brows rippling with a melancholy that was difficult to dispel. She was a deity-grade soul formation cultivator, but only at the early stage of the soul formation realm. It wouldn't be a big problem for her to kill any cultivator at the peak of the soul formation realm. But Divine Prince Han Ming was different. He was a late-stage sacred soul formation cultivator, comparable to a half-saint. Objectively speaking, Zhao Xueqing was slightly inferior. And Jiang Tian also knew that the Zhao Xueqing in front of him was just a clone. Although she used the creation substance and the 5 elements heavenly materials and earthly treasures to build her internal organs and left many divine powers, she wasn't the original Zhao Xueqing after all, so her strength was reduced by half. If the original Zhao Xueqing had a 50% chance of winning, this clone only had a slim chance of winning. "It's okay," Jiang Tian said softly. "I plan to cultivate in seclusion for 5 days. With the help of the time array disk, I should be able to break through to the mid-stage or even the peak stage of the nascent soul realm. I'm a divine-grade nascent soul cultivator. By then, I won't be afraid of a sacred soul formation cultivator, even if he's at the peak stage. You're going to cultivate in seclusion again, a trace of resentment flashed in Zhao Xueqing's eyes. Jiang Tian hadn't been intimate with her for a moment since he returned from the ruins of deities. It was impossible to say that she didn't have the slightest expectation. However, she had inherited the memories and way of thinking of the main body, so her personality and reactions were extremely similar to the main body. She smiled and said, "Okay, husband, I'll guard the sect for you. You can go into seclusion in peace. Not just the sect, but the entire world." Jiang Tian corrected him. "I understand." Zhao Xueqing smiled apologetically. She felt that she was always slightly inferior to Jiang Tian in terms of scheming. Of course, in Han Ming's eyes, Tianqing School may be the most important force on earth that needs to be eliminated. Therefore, Tianqing School is likely to bear the brunt of the attack. If you protect Tianqing School well, you will be protecting the entire world. Jiang Tian smiled. That night, Jiang Tian went into seclusion and announced that Zhao Xueqing would be in charge of the affairs of the Myth Alliance and Tianqing School. Without Zhao Xueqing's order, no one was allowed to disturb them even if the sky fell. Those who disobey will be killed without mercy. Whoosh! In an empty room deep inside the sect, Jiang Tian sat on a cushion with a calm face. Suddenly, he tapped the sky-swallowing demonic gourd on his waist. Immediately, surging essence qi and soul energy gushed out and floated around. All kinds of Dharma laws and fragments of the Grand Tao floated up and down. They were so dense that they couldn't be dissolved. After refining the blood of 100 soul formation cultivators, I think I can enter the 4th level of the nascent soul level, or even the peak stage of the nascent soul level. Jiang Tian's expression was calm and resolute. His gaze was focused as he took out the time formation plate once more, filling it with high-grade energy crystals. The time formation plate activated, forming a time formation boundary that completely enveloped him. "Refine!" Jiang Tian shouted in a low voice. The 9 orifices nascent soul in the spirit embryo suddenly opened its eyes, as if it could see through the world. "Refine!" The 9 orifices divine infant formed a mysterious spell with its hands, and the divine plate behind it turned into chaotic flames, forming an ancient-looking cauldron. The fire inside was strong enough to burn a soul formation level cultivator. Only a day had passed outside, but dozens of days had passed since Jiang Tian's time array disk accelerated. After refining the blood of the divine emperors of the ruins of deity, Jiang Tian broke through the 4th level of the nascent soul level and entered the mid-stage of the nascent soul level. The spirit embryo was extremely dense and heavy, as if it were made of gold. It was giving off an eternal and indestructible energy. The 9 orifices divine infant, which was originally the size of a thumb, had also expanded several times and reached 3 inches. Moreover, it was becoming more and more dazzling, exuding a mystical aura. Its vertical pupils were demonic, and its eyes were filled with disdain. The aura of primal chaos lingered around its body, carrying with it the aura of creation and the beginning of all things, as if it could create a world. Not only has the divine infant reached the phenomenal success level, but my chaotic divine body has also been nourished. It's about to reach the phenomenal success level. Jiang Tian looked at the chaotic divine body and could not help but reveal a hint of surprise. At this moment, the chaotic divine body shone brightly. It was as if there were galaxies flowing under his skin. Star regions were flickering. A faint pressure enveloped the entire dojo, covering an area of 100 miles. What a terrifying energy! It's like a deity. Outside, Lotus Tathagata, Situ Shao, Yi Karen, and the others all felt a sense of trepidation. They could not bear it and cried out in alarm. One had to know that after Zhao Xueqing returned, she had already used Peerless treasured medicine to recover their dantian, spirit embryo, and so on. Although their cultivation hadn't returned to their peak state, they had recovered 70 to 80%. They were the strongest nascent soul and golden core cultivators. However, they still felt like rabbits meeting a tiger when facing Jiang Tian's energy, which was suppressed by their cultivation. It was an instinctive fear that came from the bottom of their hearts. The energy is suddenly here. Has Senior Tai Chu broken through? Is he going to come out? Yi Karen clicked his tongue and exclaimed. He must have broken through to the 4th level of the nascent soul level and entered the mid-stage. Joy appeared on Zhao Xueqing's pretty face. It was as if 100 flowers had bloomed, causing the surroundings to brighten up. However, she remained calm and said softly, however, if he doesn't come out of seclusion, no one can disturb him. What? Master is going to break through continuously? Lotus was shocked. If he can kill a soul formation cultivator at the early stage of the nascent soul level, it'll be a piece of cake for him. If he breaks through to the peak stage of the nascent soul level, even Han Ming Zongzi won't be able to defeat him. Sasaki Aisha was wearing a kimono and carrying a sword on her back. She looked like a peerless swordswoman. Hearing this, she couldn't help but feel her blood boiling. Her eyes lit up, and a surge of fighting spirit soared into the sky. That's right. Everyone's blood was boiling and the depression and pressure in their hearts were gone. Master's wife, something's wrong. At this moment, a dignified figure walked in quickly. It was Qin Yang. HM. What's going on? Zhao Xueqing raised her eyebrows and took a sip of tea. Qin Yang was the representative of Sidoni and the Tianqing school in the Mythological Alliance. He was discussing with the cultivation organizations and the military about how to deal with the enemy, so the news he brought must be very important. Besides, he seemed to be in a hurry, so it must be something serious. According to NASA's surveillance, tens of thousands of spaceships from the Beihan sect are heading straight for Earth. They are only 800,000 kilometers away from Earth now. After hearing what Qin Yang said, everyone was shocked. Chapter 1754. Unexpectedly, Han Ming Zongzi was also a ruthless and decisive person. Once he gave the order, he immediately launched a decisive battle without holding back. Not only did Qin Yang bring back news, but he also brought back images taken by many radio telescopes. They're going all out to fight to the death. And the Lord is still in seclusion. Old Rulai Lotus was shocked. 5 years later, he had already stepped into the middle stage of the nascent soul realm. Back then, he was the old Rulai of West Earth, a figure who dominated a world. What kind of cruel battles had he not experienced? What kind of big scenes had he not experienced? However, when he saw these scenes, he also felt a sense of trepidation. After all, this was a cultivation civilization that far surpassed Earth and West Earth. Masteress, what should we do? After all, Yi Karen and Sasaki Haisha were still young, so they were a little flustered. This battle was different from the previous one. They were only fighting with the agents trained by Han Ming Zongzi, such as Jeffrey and Ji Muxian. Even so, they were still at a disadvantage. If it weren't for the strong foundation laid by Jiang Tian, the Tianqing school would have collapsed. And this time, Han Ming Zongzi had mobilized an army to fight head-on, which was an unprecedented enemy. It was impossible and abnormal to say that they weren't nervous. Mom, the dog puppet can't move. No, it's lame. Suddenly, Jiang Beibei ran in with the dog puppet in her arms and said with red eyes. Brat, I told you not to open its stomach, but you insisted. Zhao Xueqing used the art of creation to repair the broken dog puppet and scolded gently, you broke the talisman array and the talisman lines. Although its divine soul sends a signal and the reactor provides energy, it can't be transmitted to its limbs. Isn't that lame? I want to open it and see if its body structure is the same as Uncle Dahe's. Jiang Beibei leaned against Zhao Xueqing and said coquettishly. Beibei, what do you mean? Do you want to open Uncle Dahe? Don't scare me. The big black dog trembled in fear. A moment later, Zhao Xueqing crossed her right leg over her left. She wore an embroidered slipper on her snowy right foot. Her pinkish-white toes subconsciously curled up as she quickly fixed the puppet puppy. She grumbled, "You're just like your father, a violent maniac. You're not allowed to be so rough in the future, got it? Got it? Squat down. Roll on the ground. Hee hee." Jiang Beibei smiled sweetly and squatted beside Zhao Xueqing, playing with the puppet dog happily. Chen Yang was anxious. He bowed and asked, "Mistress, how should we deal with this? Please give the order. Should we wake the leader of the Taichu Alliance? He's going into seclusion, so don't disturb him. I alone am enough." Zhao Xueqing took another sip of tea before gently placing the teacup on the table as if she hadn't had enough. She stood up and said with a smile. "What?" Everyone was shocked. "Mom, where are you going?" Jiang Beibei was also holding the puppet dog. Her eyes were slightly red as she shouted worriedly. She was very precocious and knew everything. She knew that every time her mother went out, it was to kill bad people and risk her life. "Grandpa, everyone, guard the sect for me." Zhao Xueqing knew that Jiang Tian's seclusion couldn't be disturbed. Once the Big Dipper entered Earth, Jiang Tian's undisturbed seclusion would be empty words. Therefore, they had to be stopped outside the realm and not be allowed to approach the Tianqing sect. She picked up Jiang Beibei and kissed her. She teased her and said, "Why are you crying? I'm just going to kill a few evil dogs. I'll come back and tell you a bedtime story at night." "Mom, you must keep your word," Jiang Beibei said with tears in her eyes. "Qing'er, you must be careful. I'll take good care of Beibei." Zhang Wanqing took her granddaughter and said worriedly, "Okay." Zhao Xueqing nodded with a smile and stepped into the sky. The aura on her body became brighter and brighter, like a burning flame. Her energy broke through the clouds. It was small at first, but in the end, it was like a surging wave. "Mistress, she's as strong as a man. She's so powerful." Yes, only such a supreme beauty is worthy of the sect master. Everyone on the ground was terrified. They only felt a terrifying energy descending from the sky, as if an ancient divine beast had awakened. Lotus Lord, Sita Xiao, and the others looked solemn and respectful. Yi Karen, Sasaki Haisha, and the other female cultivators were also fascinated and wanted to be in her place. Even the cultivators from other planets such as Hanch Divine Prince and Qinshi Fairy were in awe. Boom! Thousands of feet in the sky, the clouds and laws were split in half by Zhao Xueqing. She rushed out of Earth's gravitational field in the blink of an eye. There were no clouds in the way and the sun seemed to be 100 times brighter than before. It shone on her white dress and reflected a dazzling light. "They're really here." Zhao Xueqing's expression was slightly awe-inspiring. She looked at the deep space and saw extremely small black dots. Suddenly, she slapped her storage ring and summoned the unsetting sun. The hatch opened, and she took the ship and rushed toward the outer space. The Beihan sect is invading. Soon, the news spread across the entire Earth. Under the leadership of Jiang Tian, the Myth Alliance believed in the power of the people and never deliberately hid any news. Of course, when Jeffrey was in power, these principles were all empty talk. Besides, the space city of the Beta Star was not far from Earth and could be seen clearly with a telescope. Even if they wanted to hide it, they couldn't. After the Beta Star's invasion began, the Myth Alliance immediately released the relevant information. When those images were exposed, people were completely shocked. They saw. The sky was densely packed with small black spots like ants and locusts. Every black dot, upon magnification, was a gigantic warship with a radius of 10 miles. Just one of them had the terrifying power to crush the Black Eagle Federation, which was one of the strongest countries in the world. Not to mention, there were hundreds of ships. It's over. Humans on Earth are doomed. The end of the world is here. I thought the end of the world would be in 2012, but it's in 2018. Oh my God, I don't want to die. Billions of people felt their hands and feet cold. No matter how optimistic they were and how confident they were in Jiang Tian and the Earth civilization, they couldn't help but feel cold at this moment. Because the ships of the Beihan sect were too terrifying and magnificent. There were more than a dozen soul formation cultivators and even Han Ming Zongzi. That was simply terrifying. How could they resist? Where's Kang Taechu? He should do something. At this moment, everyone looked at the Tianqing school, hoping that Jiang Tian would do something. Then, the Myth Alliance released the news. Leader Kang Taechu is in seclusion. He won't do anything for the time being. When the news was released, the entire world was in an uproar. In a blink, it occupied the top 10 trending topics. Countless netizens were discussing it and panicking. What? Kang Taechu won't do anything? He chose to cultivate in seclusion at this time. Is he scared? Or was he injured in the previous battle? If he doesn't do anything, humans on Earth won't have any chance of winning. These people treated Jiang Tian as the pillar that supported the Earth, the needle that stabilized the world. Their reaction was actually understandable. There's always a substitute when playing basketball, let alone in a war. Kang Taechu has been fighting continuously since he came back and defeated Jeffrey, Ji Muxian, and many other traitors. Even if he's made of iron, he would be tired. The enemy has just arrived. Of course, he needs to rest and recharge his energy. Don't panic. As long as the leader of the Taichu Alliance is on Earth, we don't have to worry. It's not the time for the final battle yet. We have to save our trump card for last. Jiang Tian's close friends such as Xin Lu, Lu Yiting, and Lady Wu, as well as the officials such as Keynes and Qin Yang, all of them gave some explanations to calm the people down and stabilize the situation. They didn't want the Earth to be in chaos again. What seclusion? It's just an excuse. Kang Taechu is obviously scared. He doesn't dare to face Han Ming Zongzi at all. However, some people didn't listen to those explanations at all. They sneered and cursed. That's right. At this distance, the army of the Beihan sect will arrive on Earth in 3 days. What's the use of cultivating in seclusion at this time? If it's not an excuse, then what is it? Maybe. He must have abandoned Earth and run away. He swore that he would drive the cultivators from other planets out of the solar system. But in fact, it's just a slogan. It's not uncommon to see this kind of thing. In fact, it's just an excuse. He's just greedy for power and wants to be the leader of the Myth Alliance. When Han Ming Zongzi arrives, I'm afraid he will bow down in a few minutes. Isn't it too late to be afraid now? How can the ants on Earth be a match for the gods from other planets? What a joke. These people had seen the endless power of the cultivators from other planets and had been completely brainwashed by them. They regarded the humans on Earth as ants and worshipped the cultivators of the Dipper sect as gods. Many of them were die-hard fans of Ji Muxian, Jeffrey, and Han Ming Zongzi. Just as everyone was mocking him, the first clash between the Earth and the cultivators of the Dipper sect had already happened. Tens of thousands of crystal battleships were deployed 800,000 kilometers away from Earth. They formed a rectangular formation of the Myth Alliance's fleet and were equipped with the latest Coelian missiles. They also formed a nuclear weapon array with large nuclear weapons. In fact, after Han Ming Zongzi declared war, the nuclear weapons stored by the superpowers on Earth had all been transported over in the past few days. This line of defense was the accumulation of all the nuclear weapons on Earth. For the sake of survival and the continuation of their civilization, Earth was like a crazy gambler who had chosen to stake everything on a single throw. When a 5-kilometer class crystal battleship of the Beihan sect called Descender entered the range of the attack, as Keynes gave the order, suddenly, tens of thousands of crystal battleships on Earth fired their cannons at the same time. The Coelian missiles shot out beams of light that could melt gold and iron. They tore the sky apart and hit the Descender. In the meantime, the nuclear arrays within 10 square kilometers swarmed forward and exploded, drowning the crystal warship, Descender. The energy of this attack was extremely terrifying. It was enough to tear apart a small planet or a satellite like the moon. But when the smoke dissipated, everyone was shocked to see that the descender was like a tank. Although there were some stains on the surface of the descender, it was still intact. It was like a tank that had been hit by an egg. It floated silently in the sky and seemed to be eternally immortal. It seemed to be silently mocking the ignorance and weakness of the civilization on Earth. When the image was transmitted to Earth. At this moment, the entire planet was in dead silence. Everyone trembled and their hearts were filled with despair. Even the hawkish figures such as Canes, Lotus, and Jiang Chang'an couldn't help but show a trace of fear in their eyes.